Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 3 of what Naruto was in Hazbin Hotel and got a harem. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. There was another crack in her halo. Sarah fussed at it restlessly, delicate fingers brushing over the blackened fissure that marred the once pristine ring hovering above her head. It shimmered weakly now, no longer shining with the same clarity as before. That worried her more than she cared to admit. A damaged halo could mean many things, none of them good. Pride, doubt, attachment, all potential sins. It also heralded something far more concerning. A sure sign that one was about to fall. Where did I go wrong? She whispered to the empty room. Her reflection in the tall mirror gazed back impassively, not judging, but not comforting either. She touched the cracked light once more, then let her hand fall, letting motes of golden light fall through it. The glass felt colder today. And did her wings seem dimmer somehow? No, surely not. She would fix this. She would recover. But what if she didn't? What if it got worse? Sarah sighed. Why is this happening? Simple, came a voice from the doorway, smug and unmistakable. Because you let it. The head seraphim pivoted with a snarl, teeth clenched. Adam sauntered in without invitation, long red hair flowing behind her like an arrogant banner. Her body had changed, graceful, sleek, muscular in a dangerous sort of way, but the cocky swagger remained. Somehow, it seemed worse now. Feminine wiles mixed with the same masculine ego, brewed into a creature of sharp teeth and sharper remarks. That form suits you, she quipped dryly. What shall I call you now? Eve. Another crack formed in her halo. Damn it. Call me whatever makes you feel clever, halo cracker. Adam spread her arms wide, mock spinning as though showing off a dress. I quite like this form, actually. Bit more balanced, you might say. Especially the ass. I mean, have you seen this thing? She tutted. Crude as ever. I see. You haven't changed. Aha, but I have. Unlike you, Miss Uptight. Sarah didn't smile. Adam's grin twitched, then faded. You take things far too seriously. She considering smiting the smug angel, and you take nothing seriously at all. That's why we make a great team. Or we used to. Adam leaned against a nearby column, watching Sarah with those maddening amber eyes. Still refusing to give the underworld any breathing room. Still trying to police every little move they make. Sarah bridled. It's not about policing, it's about vigilance. We've already seen the consequences of neglect. They attacked us. Bull and shit. The lesser angel raised a glowing digit. That collateral happened because you sicked Morningstar on him. Bad idea, by the way. You made an enemy with that. Congratulations. She hissed. You would support this nonsense. You mean the kid, Naruto. I mean all of it. Sarah flung out her wings, momentarily regaining her luster before dimming once more. The seraphim were always meant to be stewards, not tyrants. But if we abdicate completely. That's not the reason you're cracking apart, Adam interrupted, nodding toward her halo. Ever think you might be to blame for that? Nonsense. Everything I do is for the good of the heavens. The heavens are yourself. The stinging barb silenced her for a moment. Her shoulders slumped. Why are you even here, Adam? In the interest of not getting my now bountiful ass handed to me again or getting zapped to death by top brass, the transformed, or had he been cursed? Angel flinched at something Sarah didn't understand, and jerked her chin towards the doors. I'm here to tell you to lay off. Oh, and because your favorite little murder soldier refuses to follow orders. The doors slammed wide open. I heard that. Luke strode into the chamber, boots clicking angrily on marble, wings rigid and tight against her back, halo gleaming darkly to match her maligned expression. She saluted half-heartedly, then dropped it without being dismissed. With all due respect, ma'am, I stand by what I said. This is bullshit. Sarah sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. Language, dear. Adam shrugged. Meh, she's said worse. No, really. Luke granted them both a glower. You want me to just stand by and let hell consolidate power while we twiddle our thumbs and smile politely? That's not stewardship. That's cowardice. We need to slaughter them now before they regroup and attack us again. We are not warmongers. Sarah steepled her fingers and laid her chin atop them. We do what must be done because we must. We take no joy in it. To be fair, Adam raised a finger. I kinda did for a while. Luke rounded on him, incredulous. Don't tell me you're supporting this truce. What can I say? Adam's ever-present smile vanished. Doesn't feel so great when you're the one being tortured. Speak for yourself, sir. Luke snapped. I still want to kill them. All of them. Sarah squinted at her. Was that a crack in her halo? She couldn't be sure. Adam whistled. Yeesh. Someone's cranky today. Luke snarled. I am not cranky. Adam reached out, grabbed her by the collar, and started dragging her bodily toward the exit. Come on, murder Barbie. Time for your walk. Get your hands off me. Nope, Adam chirped, hauling her along. You and me. We're gonna go hit something. Far away from this room. For everyone's sake. Might even see what this new body of mine can put out in bed. You've been pent up these last few days, haven't you? Luke squawked unhappily, face red. Sir, we're in public. Ma'am now, technically. My point stands. So does mine. To the bedroom. Sarah watched them go, then sat down with a quiet groan. I'm surrounded by fools. 0.0.0.0. The Hazbin Hotel had seen worse. To be fair, it was a shelter to all manner of misfits these days. Though perhaps not one quite like this. Velvet glided through the gilded lobby with the effortless poise of someone who believed ownership was simply a matter of attitude. And hers radiated like a neon sign. Her smile was too precise to be genuine, razor sharp at the corners, like a well-honed blade wrapped in bubblegum gloss. A pair of angular sunglasses perched on her nose, dark enough to obscure her eyes yet not so dark as to hide the smug tilt of her brow. Her heels struck the tile with rhythmic precision, each click like the tick of a clock counting down to mischief. She twirled once, arms out as though to greet an adoring audience, though the only one watching was Husk, who responded with a low growl and a deeper scowl. From the far corner of the lounge, Carmilla reclined lazily in a Victorian settee, swirling a glass of crimson liquid that bore only a passing resemblance to wine. Her nose crinkled faintly. Do we really have to deal with her? She asked, voice thick with old-world boredom. Charlie, caught halfway between hospitality and horror, offered a sheepish shrug. She, registered, technically. Carmilla raised an arched brow. So do most parasites. Above them, on a narrow balcony overlooking the chaos, Naruto stood with his arms folded. He leaned against the iron balustrade, expression unreadable but vaguely amused, as if he were watching a street magician attempt sleight of hand with transparent gloves. Emily hovered at his side, wings flicking once with visible unease. Her gaze followed Velvet's meandering path below, like watching a fox prance through a henhouse, admiring the architecture before the slaughter. She's energetic, the little seraphim offered delicately. Isn't she? Naruto's lips twitched. She's a bomb with lip gloss. Emily blinked. Pardon. I'm fairly certain she's already planted 6 surveillance devices. He squinted. Maybe 7. The little seraphim squeaked, lavender eyes bulging. What? He held up a hand, and patted her head. Kidding. Mostly. Down below, Velvet had commandeered the center chaise. She spun it 30 degrees, stepped back, tilted her head, then rotated it another 10. Satisfied, she plopped down sideways and began chatting with Nifty as if they'd been old roommates. Husk snarled something incoherent when she waved at him. Angel Dust cracked a joke about glitter and lace, which earned him a dramatic finger gun and an exaggerated wink. A pointed remark toward Kurama had he ducking a crimson tail. She seemed to enjoy riling the fox up more than anyone else. And as for Verosuka, those two were getting along like a house on fire. Almost worryingly so. To be fair, their resident succubus couldn't hide forever, not with Carmilla taking up a semi-permanent residence in the hotel. She'd reluctantly come downstairs, though she looked ready to bolt. Thankfully the weapons dealer hadn't tried to attack her just yet, but he knew it was coming. He'd have to step in if they came to blows again. Thankfully, Carmilla seemed more irked by Velvet than Verosuka at the moment. It wouldn't last, he knew, but for now, they had a truce. Alistair, predictably, said nothing. Just smiled wider, like he knew what was going on. She's not exactly subtle, Emily whispered, her voice tight. Naruto tapped the balcony railing. That depends. He gestured with a flick of his fingers. Emily followed his point to a delicate porcelain vase nestled between a decorative pillar and the foot of a low bookshelf. Velvet's arm had passed that way not 30 seconds earlier. Now, barely visible under the vase's lip, a crystalline beetle shimmered, its translucent wings folded tight, its eyes blinking softly with ambient light. Emily's wings flared, her feathers rustling. She's spying. On Vox's orders, I'd bet my last bowl of ramen. Naruto pushed off the railing, stretching lazily. Let her. Emily stared at him, scandalized. But why? He shrugged. I find it endearing. Endearing. Now that I know what she's up to. He chuckled as he began to walk. Yeah, it's like watching a raccoon try to break into a safe with a crowbar. Loud, messy, obvious but so determined. Honestly, I thought she was gonna try and blow up the hotel or something. This I can deal with. Emily stood behind for a long moment, watching Velvet as she now pretended to admire a faded painting while subtly adjusting the angle of her shades to catch a reflection. The raccoon metaphor seemed more apt by the second. She'll cause trouble, Emily murmured, almost to herself. Of course she will, Naruto called over his shoulder. That's what makes her useful. 0.0.0.0. Later that evening, in the warmth of the upper spire, Naruto stood alone at the glass dome, watching heaven glow faintly on the far horizon. Emily joined him, carrying cocoa. You should tell Sarah what you saw, she said, offering him a cup. and ruin her evening. Naruto accepted the drink and took a small sip. Let her deal with loot and her cracked ego first. Emily winced a little at that. He noticed. You had a fight with them, didn't you? The smaller seraphim looked away. Maybe more than a fight. A pale brow rose, but he didn't pry. She seemed to appreciate that. After taking long drink of her own beverage, she spared him a skittish glance. Her emotions ran an anxious gamut, from glee to despair to quiet resolve paired by soft sorrow. Setting her cup aside, she wrung her hands, fingers twisting anxiously. I may have knocked loot out cold. Naruto snorted despite himself. You what, now? She told him what she had done to loot in no uncertain terms. By the time she'd finished, he found himself impressed. See, you can fight when you want to. Emily whined and wrung her hands anew. Don't say it like that. Why not? He patted her cheek. I'm proud of you. She hung her head. You shouldn't be. Emily. She bit her lip and her halo dimmed for a moment. I struck Sarah. Naruto's brow shot into his hair. How bad? She whimpered a little. Hard. Ah. That explained things. He sighed. Emmy. She really was too pure for her own good. He wouldn't have spared Sarah a second thought, but he could see the guilt eating at Emily. It probably had been for some time now, he just hadn't noticed. The meeting with the overlords had dominated his thoughts for some time, followed by Velvet's shenanigans. There hadn't been time for anything else. Now there was. He opened his arms. It was like flicking a switch. With a little sob, she took wing and leapt into his arms. He caught her with one arm, stumbled, narrowly avoiding spilling his cocoa with the other. Blast it all, she huffed against his chest. I don't like being short. Why are you so tall? Not my fault you're so short. She growled against his chest and thumped him once, harmless as a wet kitten. Eventually, she subsided. Thanks. I think I needed that. He kissed her forehead. No problem. For some reason she squirmed in his arms and gave him an anxious look. Shouldn't you be spending time with Miss Carmilla or Kurama? Why? He granted her a puzzled look. They're asleep. You're not. I wanna be with you. Her face went red. What? Was it something I said? Naruto. No, never mind. Emily looked like she might say something more to that effect. Instead, she hesitated. Do you really think Velvet's not a threat? Naruto retrieved his cup of cocoa and took another sip, let the silence stretch. I think she's the appetizer. The real meal's still cooking. He glanced at Emily, then past her, as if seeing something far beyond the hotel walls. And I don't like the smell coming out of the kitchen. Emily looked up at him. What will you do? He hummed and took a second sip. What I do best. 0.0.0.0. Any luck? Velvet cast a longing look at her bed as she leaned against a nearby wall, stifling a yawn against the back of her palm. She shifted her phone against her shoulder, rolling her eyes as she kicked off her boots. Darling, I only just got set up. Have some patience. Vox certainly didn't sound patient. This guy's bad new, Vel. Figure out what he's up to and get the hell out, you hear? That's an order. Boys. Always so simple. As if she'd pass up this opportunity. Tilda. Tutting softly, she shucked her trousers and wriggled her way into her pajamas. You say that, but I think he's serious about this whole redemption shtick. Bullshit. An angel of his rank wouldn't be down here for something like that. No, he's up to something. You should have seen him at the meeting. She fought down a delicious shiver at the memory. He looked like he was ready to gun every overlord down if they didn't do what he said. Hardcore. Even the V's wouldn't do something that ballsy. If she hadn't wanted him before, she did then. He's here to kill us all, then. Of course he believed that. Vox was paranoid. You say that, but he's been pretty serious about this. I think he actually believes in redemption. Something burst through the wall behind Velvet to lock a hand around her shoulder. Bits of plaster rained down upon her head as something else emerged. Cold lips brushed her ear. The funny thing is, you'd be right. Then they yanked. Hard. She barely had time to comprehend that brief burst of violence before she found herself hauled through the wall, spun right round and promptly pinned against another. Her first instinct was to lash out and defend herself, an instinct that was promptly stamped out as a knee slammed into her groin and a hand seized her by the throat, which was in turn used in leverage to bash the back of her head against the plaster. Stars burst before her vision in a colorful explosion, followed by a firm fist to her gut, and that was it. Breath burst from her lungs, dragging the last of the fight with it. Her phone clattered to the floor, Vox squawking angrily all the while. Vel, answer me. Vel's busy. A low voice growled. Leave a message at the beep. All this transpired in less than an instant. Through bleary eyes, Velvet blinked up at her captor. A bead of sweat ran down her brow as she beheld him. Ah hey. Hello again, handsome. Naruto smiled down at her. It was not a nice smile. Hello yourself. Aw shit. She was in for it now, wasn't she? Big time. How many cameras have you set up? His thumb stroked her cheek, prompting a shiver from her, and not an unpleasant one. The truth, if you please. Wouldn't want any misunderstandings between us. She wouldn't mind a few hard misunderstandings, thank you very much, but it didn't look like he was up for that sort of thing just now. No, tall, blonde, and handsome looked downright murderous. Truth. She giggled, quietly flustered by his rage and his knee pushing into her. Truth is in the eye of the bagak. She croaked as he squeezed her neck. All right, I give. I've set up 10. Naruto pressed his forehead to hers, towering over like some great golden god. Good girl. Now then, what should we do with you? The overlord gulped once, heat rising in her cheeks. Be gentle, daddy. Naruto loomed over her, eyes ablaze. Poor choice of words. Her scream filled the night. I hate mornings. Velvet groaned aloud, dragging herself down the hotel's hallway with all the enthusiasm of a zombie. Every muscle in her lithe body protested. Her hips ached, her knees wobbled, and she was fairly certain she'd never walk straight again. Damn that blonde menace. This was his fault, whatever it was that happened last night. Honestly, she wasn't even sure how to categorize it. Punishment. Interrogation. A very hands-on lesson. Her cheeks flamed at the memory of just how hands-on it got. She huffed and tried to straighten her frilly black dress, willing herself to look composed. Don't let them see weakness. You're an overlord, Vel. Act like one. She took one step into the lobby and immediately stumbled with a wince. So much for walking in proudly. Across the room, the morning breakfast crew of misfits and demons all turned at the sound of her oof. As she caught herself on the doorframe. A silence fell. And then chaos. Charlie Morningstar's scarlet eyes went wide before a delighted, if cheeky, grin spread across her face. She sat at the head of a long dining table, a half-eaten stack of pancakes before her. Well, she chirped, golden blonde tail swishing behind her. Look who finally crawled out of bed. The princess of hell's tone dripped with playful insinuation. At Charlie's side, her girlfriend turned assistant Vaggie nearly choked on her coffee. Her eyes bugged out as she glanced between Velvet and the only person notably absent from breakfast roll call. No way. Did he? She sputtered, unable to finish the thought, while a few seats down Angel Dust whooped with laughter. Oh honey. Angel Dust cackled, the spider demon fanning himself dramatically. Someone had a real good night. Look at her, she's bow-legged. He was practically vibrating in glee at the scandalous implication, forearms flailing as he cackled at her. Spill. I need details, toots. Velvet's face burned redder than Alistair's favorite pinstripe suit. She tried to muster a scathing retort, but only managed a mortified squeak. Why did everyone have to be here right now? Charlie, Vaggie, Angel, that smug radio demon, even Carmilla was perched primly at the table, watching with narrow, displeased eyes. The elegant demon's fingers tapped an annoyed staccato on her teacup, fangs set on edge. A gentle buzz of static signaled Alistair's delight as he materialized by Velvet's elbow. The radio demon's grin was as bright as the morning sun, and twice as mischievous. Good morning, my dear. He sang out. His rich voice crackled with barely contained laughter. My, you look positively radiant today. Glowing, even. He adjusted his monocle and leaned in, stage whispering, though you appear to have a slight limp. Is everything quite all right? Velvet straightened, refusing to be cowed. She smoothed down her dark bob of hair and lifted her chin. I'm fine, she lied breezily, or as breezily as one can while wobbling to the nearest chair. Summoning all her dignity, the overlord of fashion and media attempted to strut. It came out as more of a stiff-legged shuffle. A snort came from the table. Veronica Mayday, sitting with one stiletto-heeled boot propped on a chair, eyed Velvet like a cat that caught a canary. The pop star succubus pushed her purple shades down her nose, revealing her cunning eyes. Ah, you sure you're fine? Veronica cooed with saccharine mock sympathy. You're walking like you got absolutely railed. She mimed a rough smack on her own backside and winked. I know that look. That's the, I got seduced by a blonde hunk and rode hard all night, walk. Velvet nearly tripped over her own feet. He did not. She squawked, face practically steaming now. It wasn't like that. And I'm a virgin, Veronica shot back, snickering. She flipped her long pink hair over one shoulder and gave a pointed look at Velvet's disheveled appearance. The normally immaculate overlord was missing a few hairpins, her stockings were twisted, and was that a bite mark peeking above her collar. Velvet hastily tugged her neckline up, scowling. At that moment, Naruto Uzumaki chose to finally grace the breakfast table, looking annoyingly fresh and energetic. The whiskered blonde strolled in from the kitchen with a tray piled high with eggs and toast. Morning, everybody, he beamed, completely oblivious to the tension. Sorry I'm late. Emily wanted a chat with Karama something about heaven paperwork and I got a little carried away cooking. Who wants omelets? He paused, blue eyes taking in the scene. Velvet frozen mid-step, Veronica cackling behind her hand, Charlie biting her lip to keep from giggling, and a flurry of other expressions ranging from amused to exasperated. Naruto blinked, confusion knitting his brow. Why's everyone so quiet? Did I miss something? A strangled choke came from Carmilla. The overlord set down her teacup with a dangerous clink. Miss something? She echoed, eyes flashing. Oh no, nothing at all, boy. We were just wondering, she continued in a tone as sharp as an icicle, what exactly you did to our dear Velvet last night. Naruto nearly dropped his tray. What I did too. A flush crept up his neck. He cast an apologetic look at Velvet, who plopped into the nearest chair with a wince. I disciplined her. That's all, he explained hastily. She had bugs planted all over the hotel, and after some careful thought, I decided it was best to. Disciplined. Charlie piped up, arching a perfectly manicured eyebrow. The princess folded her hands under her chin, affecting an innocent expression that fooled no one. You need to be a little more specific on that front. Because judging by Velvet's current condition, she gestured vaguely at the bedraggled demoness, who glared daggers back. Well, everybody kinda thinks your idea of discipline is awfully close to, say, seduction. Charlie's eyes practically danced with mirth. Naruto's tan face went from pink to red. It wasn't, he sputtered, nearly tripping over his words. The poor shinobi looked like a fox caught raiding the henhouse. I mean, she was spying on us, so I had to teach her a lesson. And maybe things got a little, physical. But only because she attacked me first. Only because you scared the shit out of me. At that, Velvet buried her face in her hands with an incoherent groan. Trust him to make it sound even worse. Just kill me now, she mumbled into her palms. Angel Dust howled with laughter. Physical. Oh, I bet it got physical. The spider demon fluttered his snowy lashes and deepened his voice in a mock imitation of Naruto. She attacked me, so I had to pin her down and give her the roughest night of her life. He collapsed against Veggie, cackling. Classic. Shut up. Dust for brains. Velvet snapped, her mortification quickly igniting into anger. She tossed a butter knife at Angel. It bounced off his forehead harmlessly, but wiped the grin off his face. Nobody was pinned or railed or. She stopped, words failing her. Honestly, how did she end up in this situation? She remembered confronting Naruto in his room, things getting heated in more ways than one, and then, Velvet's indignation faltered as hazy recollections of wandering hands and wicked grins flitted through her mind. Her lips tingled at the memory. Focus. Carmilla's glowing gaze narrowed to sinister slits. So you claim you didn't seduce her, she said archly. Yet here she is, limping this morning. The pale vampiress tapped a claw against the table, looking thoroughly unimpressed. If that's how you discipline someone, remind me not to get on your bad side. Across the table, Alistair chuckled into his cup of chicory coffee. Oh, indeed, he drawled with mock seriousness. Our dear Velvet's current state does raise some provocative questions. The radio demon's grin stretched ear to ear, white teeth gleaming. Did our resident ninja break the poor girl, or did he simply wear her out? Velvet's brow bristled, twitching like an irritated cat's. Why don't you all mind your own damn business? She snarled, face still beet red. Nothing happened. Sure, nothing, Veronica purred, propping her chin on her hand. And I'm totally convinced those are just mosquito bites on your neck, not hickeys. Velvet slapped a hand over her neck again. She glared venom at Veronica, but the succubus just laughed, fangs peeking out in a wicked grin. Naruto groaned and ran a hand through his messy blonde hair. This was quickly spiraling out of control. All right, enough, he interjected, cheeks still glowing. Velvet was caught spying. I confronted her, we fought, I won. That's it, he huffed, trying to sound authoritative, but his flustered tone undercut it. I may have gotten a bit carried away proving a point. But, he added firmly, I did not seduce her. A soft, HMPH, came from Velvet. She peeked at Naruto from behind her fingers. Could have fooled me, she muttered, too low for the others to catch. She had bit him first to be fair when he spanked her, and he'd retaliated accordingly. In truth, she still wasn't entirely sure who if that counted as a proper seduction by the end of it. Not that she'd ever admit that out loud. Charlie clapped her hands, drawing attention back. All right, let's give them a break, she giggled. The hotel princess was clearly enjoying this gossip session, but she took pity on Naruto's embarrassment. We've got bigger fish to fry this morning than teasing our new favorite couple. We are not a couple. Naruto and Velvet yelled in unison, then exchanged startled looks. Velvet blushed harder. Naruto coughed and very pointedly focused on dishing out eggs onto plates. Charlie tittered behind her hand. Of course not, she said, winking at Veggie, who just rolled her eye. Now, down to business. She stood, smoothing her peach-colored jacket and instantly shifting into cheerful leader mode. As you all know, I'm organizing a brand new rehabilitation program thingy for the hotel. Gotta strike while the iron's hot. Driving a fist into an open palm, she beamed at the lot of them. The successful redemption of our dear Sir Pentious last week has drawn in lots of interest. I wouldn't call it redemption, he just agreed to stay here. And is currently hiding because you scared the daylights out of him, Angel Dust amended with a cackle. Hey, you take that back, I ain't that scary. Buddy, ya got 10 wings and fought the big boss to a standstill. If that ain't scary, I don't know what is. At that, Alistair's nose wrinkled briefly. The radio demon still considered Pentious turning his coat a fluke, but he maintained a polite smile. Velvet just looked confused and mildly relieved the spotlight was off her sex life. Naruto perked up, curious despite himself. Charlie continued enthusiastically, counting on her fingers. We've got seminars, team building activities, maybe even a field trip to the meadows, all to show demons there's another path besides, murder and mayhem. She beamed, eyes shining with idealism. Boot all need some extra hands to help run it. Without warning, the princess whirled and pointed dramatically at Velvet. Which is why you, Miss Velvet, are going to be our newest participant. Velvet blinked. Pardon, she drawled, wondering if she heard wrong. Around the table, a few grins reappeared, most notably on Alistair and Angel Dust. Naruto gave Charlie a thumbs up, as if this was the most natural decision in the world. Carmilla arched an eyebrow in surprise, but said nothing. Charlie pressed on, not missing a beat. You heard me. Consider it part of your punishment for that whole spying business. She waved a hand airily. Yesterday you were trying to sabotage us. Today, you'll join us and learn about the wonders of redemption. Velvet's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. Being forced into an angel-approved rehab program sounded like absolute torture for a demon overlord. Possibly worse than what she went through last night, and that was saying something. I don't need rehabilitation, thank you very much, she sneered, folding her arms. Charlie only smiled brighter, utterly immune to the demoness's glare. Oh, don't worry, it'll be fun. Trust me. She turned to the radio demon next. And Alistair, you're going to help me run it. Alistair spat out his coffee. Pardon, he echoed, almost the same tone Velvet had used. For once, the ever-poised radio demon looked caught off guard. A drop of coffee trickled down his chin, quickly wiped away as he straightened. My dear, I think I misheard. It sounded like you wanted me to assist in a redemption program. He let out a trill of static-laced laughter at the absurdity. Surely you recall, I have no interest in being redeemed. Charlie wagged a finger at him. Ah, but you are interested in the hotel's success, right? And you did say you wanted to be more involved. She clasped her hands behind her back and swayed on her heels, all wide-eyed innocence. Unless the great Alistair is afraid he can't handle it. Alistair's crimson eyes flashed. If there was one thing his pride couldn't resist, it was a challenge. Afraid? My dear, you wound me, he said with a theatrical flourish of his cane. I fear nothing. Certainly not a few unruly demons in a classroom. His grin returned, sharp as ever. If you require my unparalleled talents to make your little project a success, then who am I to deny you? Fantastic. Charlie clapped again, bouncing on the balls of her feet. Velvet. Alistair, welcome to team rehabilitation. Velvet sank lower in her chair, sullen. Being roped into working with goody two-shoes Charlie and that damnably chipper Alistair was not how she envisioned her morning. She shot Naruto a withering look, as if this was somehow his fault too. He simply gave her an encouraging smile that only made her scowl deepen. Have fun, Tilda. Jump up your own ass and die. Carmilla sniffed and stood as well, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her sleek black gown. If we're quite finished with the farce, she said tartly, some of us have duties to attend. The elder overlord was clearly still irritated, whether at Naruto's nightly escapades or Charlie's idealism, it was hard to tell. Probably both. She gave Naruto a hard glare. Try to keep it in your pants from now on, fox. She bit out. With that, she swept out of the dining hall in a swirl of burgundy skirts, leaving an awkward silence. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. She'll come around, he said, half to himself. Carmilla had been one of the first demons he'd befriended down here, and her disappointment stung more than he let on. Veronica chose that moment to stand, stretching her long legs and tossing back the last of her Bloody Mary extra blood. Speaking of pants, she drawled, violet eyes locking onto Naruto like a predator sighting prey. I believe you promised me a tour of the city, hot stuff. Naruto blinked, wings twitching behind him. I did. He searched his memory. Veronica had been flirting with him for days since this debacle began. In the midst of that chaos he might have offhandedly agreed to hang out. Oh, right, I guess I did. Veronica's glossy lips curved into a victorious smile. Good, because I'm collecting today. She sauntered closer, looping her arm through his with practiced ease. Her tail swished behind her, its heart-shaped tip flicking in sordid anticipation, and I don't take kindly to rain checks. Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but a low growl cut him off. Hold it, skank, came a rough voice from behind. A moment later, Kurama interposed herself, prying Verosuke's arm off Naruto with a clawed hand. She bared her fangs, nine tails flaring out behind her in annoyance. Naruto's already booked, the kitsune declared, golden eyes narrowing at the succubus. Find your own human chew toy. Verosuke's smile dropped, replaced by a scowl. Excuse me, she snapped, looking Kurama up and down. The former nine tails stood protectively at Naruto's side, arms crossed over her ample chest. Despite the succubus being tall herself, especially in heels, Kurama stood a couple of inches taller, and with her tails bristling and ears erect, she cut an intimidating figure. Verosuke was not impressed. Fido here thinks she can hog the blonde all to herself. Kurama's eye twitched. Call me a dog again, slut, and see what happens, she snarled, ears flattening. Tiny embers crackled at the tips of her claws, a warning from the legendary kitsune's temper. Angel Dust whistled. Think they're gonna fight? Husk scoffed. I'll take that bet. Naruto quickly stepped between the two women before things escalated to full-on demon catfight. Hey now. He laughed nervously, holding both hands up and incidentally placing a palm on each of their shoulders to keep them apart. No need for fireballs or hell magic, okay. There's plenty of me to go around. The instant the words left his mouth, his face went scarlet. Shit, I meant. Angel Dust snickered from the table. He's got plenty to go around. Ladies, the spider demon hooted, waggling his eyebrows. Trust me, if anyone can handle a threesome date, it's that stud right there. Naruto shot him a mortified shut up look, which only made Angel laugh harder. Verosuke recovered first, her scowl morphing back into a coy smirk as she pressed closer to Naruto's side, pointedly elbowing Kurama aside in the process. You heard the man, she purred, tracing a finger down Naruto's chest. He can share. Why don't you come along, Foxy? Tilda, you might learn a thing or two from a professional. She blew Kurama a mocking kiss. Unless you're too chicken shit to leave me alone with him. Naruto clapped a hand to his forehead. You just had to say it. Kurama bristled, literally her tails puffed up. The nerve of this bat-winged bimbo. She growled. Naruto, you promised we'd train today. You and me. She fixed Naruto with a firm look, ignoring Verosuke entirely now. Don't tell me you're ditching our sparring session for a flirt fest with Lusty the karaoke queen. Who are you calling a bimbo, you overgrown furball? Verosuke snapped, her succubus glamour flickering to reveal a hint of demonic features, pupils slitted, spaded tail flicking dangerously. She looked ready to lunge. Emily hollered from the balcony before they could. No fighting. If you make me redo this paperwork, I'm putting you both in timeout. Kurama physically flinched. You wouldn't. The small seraphim leaned over the railing, halo glowing, eyes intent. Try me. You're not that fluffy. Verosuke sniggered. Emily appeared before her in a flash of angelic light, fists planted on her hips. I'm sorry, did I say something that you found funny? The succubus instantly changed her tune. Nope. Didn't think so. Now behave. Naruto, caught in the middle, quite literally, let out a strangled chuckle. Some ninja he was able to face down angels and overlords, yet utterly helpless against two beautiful women fighting over him. Thanks, hun. Don't mention it. Emily gave his hand a quick squeeze, beat her wings once, and delivered a soothing peck to his cheek. I did say you should spend more time with everyone else today. I'd be an awful angel if I tried to hoard you all to myself. Truly too pure for this world. You sure? You could come with. No. She crossed both arms in the shape of an X and shook her head before he could hope to finish. BZZZT. I cherish you, really, I do, but this is your mess to sort out. Quick as a dove and with one last quick cuddle that made his heart skip a beat, she fluttered back to the balcony and retreated, leaving him to his own devices. Aunt Kurama was trying to tear out Verosuke's throat. Better stop that. Ladies, please, he sighed, gently disentangling Verosuke's wandering hand while also patting one of Kurama's fluffy tails soothingly. We can sort out a schedule or something. Verosuke, I did say I'd show you around today, but Kurama's right, I promised her some training time too. Verosuke flicked her hair with a huff. TCH. Fine. I know how to share. She looped an arm through Naruto's again possessively, shooting Kurama a challenging glare. But I call dibs on any hands-on activities. Kurama flashed a smug grin and snatched Naruto's other arm. Dream on. I'm not leaving you alone with him, succubus. You might suck out his soul or something. Naruto raised a finger awkwardly. Actually, I don't think that's how succubi work. Shush, Naruto, both women said in unison, then glared at each other for accidentally agreeing. Naruto felt a bead of sweat run down his brow. This is my life now, he thought with equal parts awe and exasperation. At least Emily was understanding about it, even if she'd avoided mentioning Velvet. Charlie looked on with poorly concealed laughter. She leaned over to Vaggie and whispered, should we do something? Vaggie just shook her head, a tiny smirk on her lips. I think he's got it under control, Vaji murmured dryly as Naruto finally managed to herd Verosuke and Kurama toward the door, each still clinging to an arm and exchanging catty barbs. Or not, she chuckled. Poor idiot. Charlie giggled. Well, at least they'll keep him busy and out of our hair while we work. Raising her voice, she called sweetly, have fun you three. Play nice. Yeah, real nice, Angel Dust added with a lewd cackle. Wear protection tilde. Naruto groaned audibly, but he didn't dare turn around. He was too busy preventing Kurama from literally pulling Verosuke's hair out. The three disappeared out the hotel's front door in a tangle of tails, wings, and one very flustered ninja. As the door slammed shut behind them, Charlie released a breath and straightened her jacket. Alrighty, now that that's sorted, she pivoted back to the remaining demons still gathered. Team Rehab, mount up. We've got a program to plan. Velvet, who had been quietly trying to sneak away amidst the commotion, froze at Charlie's cheery command. The starry-eyed princess bounded over and hooked an arm around Velvet's, steering the protesting overlord back toward the conference room. No slipping away, Vel tilde. This is a golden opportunity. By the time we're through, you might actually earn a shot at heaven. Oh joy, Velvet grumbled, dragging her feet even as Charlie dragged her along. I can't wait. The sarcasm dripping from her voice could have filled a swimming pool. Alistair trailed behind them, humming a jaunty tune on his vintage mic staff and relishing Velvet's misery with a polite smile. As the chaotic morning in the hotel finally began to calm, far above in the shining spires of heaven, another chaos was brewing, albeit of a more personal sort. Tilde. High in the ivory towers of heaven's administration, Sarah slammed a golden spy glass shut with a trembling hand. Her heart pounded furiously in her chest as she struggled to process the scene she'd just witnessed in the mortal realm below. Naruto, surrounded by a gaggle of flirtatious she-demons, being pulled every which way. The way he'd blushed, the way they clung to him. It made her blood boil. Sarah's 6 white wings flared with agitation, knocking over a stack of scrolls on her desk. That insufferable, reckless, she snarled, her composed angelic demeanor cracking spectacularly. With a sudden burst of frustration, the seraphim flipped her entire desk over. The heavy alabaster table went crashing to the marble floor of her office with a thunderous boom, papers and quills flying everywhere. 2 lower-ranked cherubs passing by the open door squeaked in fright and hurried along, pretending they saw nothing. Heaven's sweet, benevolent Sarah, snapping and throwing furniture. Unthinkable. And yet, here she was, chest heaving as she glared down at the mess she'd made. All because of him. Naruto Uzumaki. The human, well, partly human, apparently, who had thrown her orderly afterlife into disarray. She had watched him descend into hell with that ridiculous hotel project and absurd harem of admirers, and now her heart twisted in equal parts worry, jealousy, and fury. Yes, jealousy. She could finally admit that ugly truth to herself in the privacy of her quarters. Seeing him with those demons, with her of all people, that floozy Velvet, had ignited a vicious, unfamiliar jealousy inside her heart. It was the kind of envy no angel was supposed to feel. It frightened her. Sarah sucked in a shaky breath and closed her eyes. Calm down. Breathe. Throwing a celestial temper tantrum, gratifying though it might feel, would solve nothing. Naruto was a free soul. He could spend time with whomever he wished. It wasn't her place to want anything else. But he's going to ruin everything. A panicked little voice in her head whispered. All our plans, all our hopes for him, hell will corrupt him for sure. And even if it didn't, the path he was on threatened to upend all her carefully schemes. Her fist thumped against a wall. Blast it all. Reluctantly opening her eyes, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of a broken mirror. What she saw there struck her silent. Her normally radiant form was disheveled, platinum bright hair coming loose from its braids, halo cracked, white robes rumpled. But it was her wings that drew her gaze. The 6 seraphic tethers that arched from her back were not the pure pearlescent white they should be. Along the edges of her feathers, an unmistakable darkness was creeping in, inky black seeping into the downy plumes. At first, Sarah thought it was a trick of the light. But when she lifted a trembling hand to touch one, the feather crumbled at her fingertip, turning to a black ash. Sarah's blood ran cold. Her wings were turning black, her halo cracked. She knew the signs. Heaven knew she'd seen them countless times before in others. Falling from grace. Oh no, no, not now, not when she was so close to. Her stomach lurched, thoughts abandoning her in a panic. If the others saw, if Lute saw. For a moment, she could have sworn her reflection laughed at her. Like what you see. Terror seized her. Sarah stomped down on the mirror, shattering it completely, then hurried to the door and slammed it shut, shooting the bolt home. Her breaths came quick and shallow as she pressed back against the wooden frame, eyes screwed shut. Perhaps if she just stayed in here, calmed herself, it would reverse. Yes, this could be temporary, a passing flaw brought on by stress. She just needed to compose herself, pray, and it would all go back to normal by evening. Surely. She slid down to the floor, wrapping her arms around her knees. All her life, she had been the picture-perfect angel, steadfast and virtuous. Now here she was, hiding in her room as her wings, her very soul, darkened with forbidden feelings, greed, pride and wrath chief amongst them. Not lust. She refused to admit that. She absolutely refused. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. Part frustration, part heartbreak. How had it come to this? All this over a boy, a stupid, self-sacrificing, brave, kind, infuriating boy who probably didn't even realize just how much chaos he'd caused. He couldn't change anything. It was too late. If she fell because of him. A soft knock came at the door. Sarah's head snapped up, heart leaping into her throat. Sarah, came a muffled male voice. Michael. Of course it was Michael, the archangel of justice and her mentor. The one person she absolutely did not want to see her like this. Even Adam's new form would be preferable. Sarah scrambled to her feet, frantically wiping her eyes and trying to furl her wings to hide the spreading black against her back. I'm fine, she called out, hating how shaky her voice sounded. Jay just taking a moment to pray. Please, I'll come out later. A pause followed. For a moment Sarah dared to hope he would leave it at that. But the door didn't move. Through the wood, his deep voice sighed, the paperwork from last night's incident still needs your signature. But I suppose it can wait. He sounded disappointed and concerned. Sarah bit her lip, clenching her fists so hard her nails left little crescent marks in her palms. Paperwork. Right. The aftermath of Extermination Day always generated mountains of it, and she'd been meticulously working, until Naruto's antics below had distracted her. Until she'd let herself get distracted. Outside, Michael lingered another second. Sarah could almost picture him, tall and imposing in his gold and white armor, pinching the bridge of his nose like an exasperated father. You know, he said quietly, I did warn you. Sarah's chest tightened. She pressed her forehead to the cool door. I know, she whispered back, so softly she wasn't sure he'd hear. But the soft tread of his footsteps walking away told her he had. And that he was giving her time to decide which side of heaven's gates she wanted to stand on when all was said and done. Alone again, Sarah exhaled shakily. She had a terrible sinking feeling those gates would shut on her sooner rather than later. And the worst part, as she gazed down at a fallen photograph on the floor, one of her and Emily smiling together in happier days, Sarah wasn't sure she entirely minded. A blackened feather drifted down beside the picture, further evidence of her unraveling halo. Sarah shut her eyes, tears finally spilling over as she hugged herself tight. Far below, Hell's ruling elite were experiencing their own form of panic. Albeit expressed with much more yelling and far less crying. Tilda. In the depths of pandemonium, the royal palace of Hell, a conclave of 7 had gathered for an emergency meeting. It was not often that all 7 deadly sins convened in one place. In fact, it almost never happened. Each of Hell's sovereigns was a powerhouse in their own domain, and egos that large seldom fit neatly in one room. Yet here they were, seated around a massive obsidian table carved with demonic sigils, glaring at one another or fidgeting restlessly as they waited for the meeting to begin. Tension crackled in the air. At the head of the table stood Lucifer Morningstar, the Prince of Pride and King of Hell. Dapper and imposing, Lucifer cut a fine figure in his crisp white suit and crimson cravat. With a charming yet cold smile, Lucifer raised a crystal goblet to get everyone's attention. Thank you all for assembling on such short notice, he said smoothly. His voice was rich and resonant, carrying authority by default. I trust you understand the gravity of the situation that prompted this reunion. A derisive snort came from the far end of the table. Mammon, Prince of Greed, lounged with his boots up on a pile of gold bars that he had quite literally conjured as his seat. Dressed in a gaudy pinstripe suit with $sign cufflinks, the green-skinned demon picked at his pointed teeth with a diamond toothpick. Yeah, Lucy, we get it, he drawled, his tone flippant. Some twerps causing trouble, not sure why we all gotta be here fighting about it. Just throw money at the problem or throw the problem in a dumpster. Done. He flicked the toothpick, which turned one of his gold bars into solid platinum on contact. Must not strangle. Lucifer's polite smile tightened almost imperceptibly. He chose not to dignify Mammon's attitude with a direct response. Instead, he gestured to a hovering projection in the center of the table, an ethereal screen showing the image of a certain spiky-haired blonde ninja, wings and all. As you all know by now, Naruto Uzumaki has become rather influential in Hell. That's putting it lightly, grumbled Satan, Prince of Wrath. The warlike demon sat bolt upright in his chair, arms crossed over bulky, scarred muscles. Today he'd chosen the guise of a monstrous goat with burning red eyes, and his skin was charred black like cooled lava. Every few seconds, embers would fall from his curled ram horns and fizzle out on the table. Satan clenched his jaw. The brat gave you quite some trouble, didn't he? Morningstar carefully kept the smile affixed to his face. What can I say? I underestimated him. Calm. He was doing this for Charlie. If he could get these bastards on board. The things we do for family. Asmodeus, Prince of Lust, chuckled as though sensing that very thought. The flamboyant rooster-like demon sprawled lazily in his seat, one arm around a lesser succubus consort who had been quietly feeding him chocolate-dipped strawberries the whole meeting. Oh come now, he purred in his deep, velvety voice, I saw the footage. Didn't some of your best hellhounds pick a fight with him recently and lose? The towering lust lord adjusted his rosy sunglasses and smirked. I seem to recall him and his ladies sending your dogs home with their tails between their legs. Maybe they're just embarrassed that a pretty boy half their size kicked their asses. Satan bristled, smoke puffing from his nostrils. Watch it, Ozzy, he snarled, using Asmodeus's nickname. Or I'll show you what embarrassment really feels like. Ooh, I'm so scared, Asmodeus shot back, rolling all four of his eyes. You'll burn my orgy pits. Strike me with lightning, please. Take a number. Far as I'm concerned, our angelic friend has my blessing to do as he pleases. After all, he's been a busy boy. Mammon cackled. Just throw a few women at him, then. That'll keep the kid distracted. He certainly seems greedy enough. It took everything Lucy had not to pump a fist in triumph. One down. Maybe two. Beelzebub, the queen of gluttony, slammed her mug of demon ale on the table, the impact rattling plates of half-eaten food around her. Could we focus, please? She growled, her normally mirthful voice edged with impatience. Normally the life of the party, Beelzebub did not look amused today. In fact, worry creased her pretty features. We're here to talk about the angel, not your bruised egos. Asmodeus raised his clawed hands in a gesture of peace, chuckling. Mammon snickered something under his breath about, Queen Bee's got her stinger out. Bee ignored them and looked pointedly at Lucifer. I agree with Lucy, she said firmly. We have a serious situation. An angel is down here running amok without guidance, talking about salvation. And if he can fight us to a standstill, maybe even win. A watery gurgle of assent came from Leviathan, Prince of Envy. The whelp was in heaven, was he not? Her forked tongue flicked. An angel from heaven, now loose in hell, and not fallen at that. It upsets the balance. Does it though? Belphegor drawled. He's hardly bothered us now, has he? Easy for you to say. Morningstar let them quibble amongst themselves for a moment, smiling to himself. And then. I have a proposal. The other sins looked his way, silently. In the end, Beelzebub broke it. We're listening. His cheeks dimpled in a grin as he told them. Naruto better appreciate this. Naruto Uzumaki strode into the warm glow of Pentagram City's entertainment district feeling uncharacteristically nervous. How unlike him. He'd even deigned to dress up for the occasion. Which he could apparently do as an angel. Who knew? Not him. Not until recently. He straightened his tie with a grin that felt more half-smile than full confidence. This was, after all, a date, his first official date with Verosuke Mayday. Kurama? Well, not so much, but she didn't seem keen on letting go of him anytime soon. Indeed, the nine-tailed fox demon was practically welded to his hip, clinging onto his arm as they approached a sleek, black booth outside a bustling cafe. Already he could feel fell eyes flicking around suspiciously, but the fox remained quietly introspective for the moment. He still didn't entirely understand why Verosuke had insisted on going ahead of them. He was afraid she might have figured out his little date plan, but in the end, it didn't matter, for he soon had his answer. Verosuke Mayday was waiting, radiant in neon pink attire that matched the evening sky behind her. She gave him a teasing smile as he approached, tail swishing with interest. You look organized, she purred, raising an eyebrow at his somewhat formal black suit. Never seen you dress up like that. What's the occasion, big boy? Cocktail night in the hellscape. Naruto shrugged and gestured to Kurama. Figured I'd look presentable for you. Besides, I know we're not in Konoha, but a guy still likes to treat his date right. He added with a playful grin, trust me, I have plenty of practice being, proper. Bumbling experience perhaps, but some was better than none. Verosuke chuckled and leaned back, eyeing Kurama warily. Ooh, practiced, huh? Pray tell, what qualifies an ex-garden boy ninja turned angel for dating a succubus like me? She teased, flicking a lock of her long hair. Her eyes sparkled mischievously as she took in the scene. And that's an unusual party you've got there. Is he, what, your emotional support demon? Kurama snorted indignantly, tried of holding her tongue. I am quite real, thank you very much. And I'm not just emotional support. I'm literally a centuries-old spirit. I have needs. Naruto patted Kurama gently on the head. Settle down, she's trying to rile you up. Rolling his eyes, he turned to Verosuke with a warm sincerity in his gaze. Tonight, I want it to be just a normal date. I mean, I know you've probably had guys throw themselves at you every day, but this isn't that kind of thing. I just want to treat you right, you know. Verosuke's usual sultry grin softened for a moment, her slitted eyes widening in genuine surprise. Huh, she said quietly, caught off guard by his earnest tone. That's actually pretty cute. Most guys jump my bones without a second thought. Heat rose in her pink cheeks, barely noticeable, but present all the same. You actually sound like a prince. Naruto scratched the back of his head, chuckling ruefully. Nah, just figured if I get to spend time with you, might as well do it right. No tricks. The succubus tilted her head and watched him carefully. You're serious, aren't you? No crazy games. No accidental explosions. And gangsters attacking us or a shtick like that. A slow grin spread across her face as she leaned forward, hands under her chin. Fine by me. It's kind of refreshing, actually. Kurama snorted again. Leave it to you to find sincerity in a demon dating scenario. I never thought I'd be so flabbergasted. Naruto rolled his eyes at Kurama's remark. Kurama, don't spoil it, he whispered back, even as he smiled at the fox's reaction. Naruto waved the waitress over. She brought over menus with odd, glowing symbols that shifted as you looked at them, and to his great delight, he recognized some of them. He chose something gingerly and looked Verosuke's way. All right, I hope you like food from the living world, this place seems to have plenty of ingredients. Verosuke glanced at the menu, then back to Naruto. This ain't some cheap dive, babe. They normally just swipe at the air for a bite and it turns into a meal, she made to say more, only for her eyes to light up at the black bento boxes Naruto soon arrived on the table. A neat sushi platter with wasabi shaped like little hellhound heads snarling. Wait a minute, made all this yourself? She asked in amazement. When did you even have the time to? Of course he had the time, he'd scouted this place out with his shadow clones beforehand. As to the cooking, many hands made for light labor. Not that he'd tell her any of that, naturally, it'd ruin the surprise. He still had a taste for theatrics. Naruto beamed instead, quietly reveling in her confusion. Trade secret. I don't have sushi back in my world, so I adapted. I can make ramen though, if you want some next time. So speaking, he reached with his chopsticks and offered a piece to Kurama, who reluctantly tasted it with a growl of approval. Come on, behave, he chided the fox playfully. She's a special guest tonight. Kurama munched thoughtfully, then looked to Verosuke. This is pretty good, she declared, tails swishing in approval. You actually have an ear for cooking, don't you? Naruto puffed out his chest. You know it, I've had some practice. Besides, I figured better to share something real than rely on my chakra to do tricks. From there, he turned to Verosuke and extended a piece of sushi toward her with a grin. Here, try this, it's salmon with a hint of ginger. I think you'll like it. Verosuke arched an eyebrow and leaned forward. Naruto gently held the sushi between his chopsticks to her mouth. She bit into it, her eyes widening at the rich flavor. Holy shit, Naruto, that's delicious. She licked the corner of her mouth and gave an appreciative nod. Where did you learn to make something like this? Naruto shrugged, modestly pleased. There was a little ramen shop where I used to live. Learned a few sushi recipes from a friend of mine there, Ayame, but I never really had a chance to put them to use until now. I wanted tonight to feel real. He paused, then reached out across the table and gently squeezed Verosuke's hand. Besides, you deserve to be treated like the pop star queen you are. Apparently the lines Lucy had suggested worked like a charm, because Verosuke visibly flushed again, cheeks practically glowing this time. You're weird, but I like it, she teased softly, giving his fingers a gentle squeeze in return. I mean, I definitely wasn't expecting this. But I kinda like it when guys treat me, you know, like a person and not something. Naruto blushed and rubbed the back of his neck. Thanks. I just thought if I got to meet you, I should do it right. You're really cool, Verosuke. Gah, he cursed himself for the word a moment later, swearing inwardly. Really cool. So cringe. Why did I say that? Kurama kicked him under the table. He growled and stomped on her foot as Verosuke digested his words. The succubus looked away shyly. Since when was this woman shy? For a moment, digging a clawed finger into the table. Seeing her like this, actually embarrassed instead of her usual waspish self was odd, but a good kind of odd, all things considered. Cool, huh, she managed, a smile creeping back onto her face. You know, not many use that word on me. She leaned forward and took another small bite of sushi that Naruto offered to her. After swallowing, she nodded. Okay, full points for cooking. This is amazing. Kurama let out a low, amused chuckle from Naruto's lap. Bravo, Naruto. You've unlocked a whole new date mode. Who are you and what have you done with the shinobi I know? Naruto laughed quietly. Trust me, Kurama, this is real. You're seeing the real me, he whispered, giving her head a gentle rub. Then he looked back at Verosuke. So, I'll be honest, there's no plan after dinner. I was thinking we could just stroll a bit, see some sights. Whatcha you think? Verosuke sipped the last of her drink and smirked playfully. That's it. No surprise magic show or demon limo chase. Naruto grinned. Hey, I said no tricks tonight. Just us. He winked at her, adding softly, besides, I kinda like this quiet. For a moment, Verosuke's masquerade slipped entirely. The usual seductive front vanished, replaced by a genuine curiosity and something softer. Naruto caught himself staring at her subtle smile. It made his heart quicken a little. This is kind of, well, honestly, she said, it's a lot better than I expected. Naruto's cheeks went a little pink. Kurama, recognizing the change, gave her tails a triumphant swish in a less than subtle provocation. I should also mention, sir, by all known protocols, I must keep you two supervised. Because this feels dangerously wholesome. The succubus hissed at her, fang bared. Piss off, furball, you're ruining the moment. Kurama flipped her off with a vicious sneer. Precisely why I came here, bitch. Oi, Verosuke slammed both hands down upon the table. You wanna go? The kitsune matched her, butting her forehead against hers. Anytime. Enough. Naruto thumped them both over the head with his wings and drove them back into their seats. Kurama didn't cower under his gaze, she never would, but she did flinch a bit at the disappointed glance he gave her. Both her ears and tails alike dropped low as he stared her down. She started it. Actually, that'd be you. The vixen huffed, crossed both arms beneath her bosom and whirled around, refusing to acknowledge her fault. Verosuke giggled, attention recaptured as she leaned a bit closer across the small table. You're really something, ninja boy, she murmured. I'm having fun. Alright, fine, furball aside, this is almost a perfect date. Naruto beamed, warming her with a shy grin. Yeah. Verosuke confirmed, smoothing a hand along her dress. The sushi is great, you're a gentleman, and that fox of yours may be a bit of a bitch. I am literally right here. But she means well, and she's not as scary as I thought. So, she flicked her eyes up at him. Yeah, don't start thinking you're gonna save me or anything, but for now, I'm enjoying this. Naruto laughed softly. I'll just enjoy it too, then. He looked around and noticed Kurama tugging at his orange sleeves. Heads up. We have guests. Verosuke followed his gaze and her once playful smile faded to concern. As she saw a small pack of hellhounds emerging from a shadowed alleyway next to the cafe. He counted 6 in total, one of which stood head and shoulders above the rest. Their red eyes glowed menacingly as they approached the booth with a determined gait. Kurama's ears perked. Naruto, dinner's getting interesting. Naruto instantly stood, stepping protectively in front of Verosuke. Get behind me, he said quietly but firmly. He raised a hand, a current of chakra swirling visibly around his palm. Kurama, now fully alert, moved to flank him, each of her 9 tails standing on end as they awaited their approach. They didn't wait long. The leader of them, a big bull of a brute with a pierced ear, stopped an arm's length away, crossed both arms before his broad chest, then summarily eyed him up and down. You the angel? Naruto tilted his head. Depends. Who's asking? Yeah, it's you all right. The hellhound's muzzle wrinkled in distaste. You've got the scent about ya. Looking past him, he winked in Kurama's direction. Nice babe. You've got good taste, I'll give ya that. Kurama hissed at his less than pleasant remark, but he didn't give her a chance to reply, instead looking to him once more. Boss wants a word with you. You're coming with us. What boss? You know who. The hound replied. Yeah, no, I really don't, hence why I'm asking. A hand clamped down on his shoulder, reeling him back in. Yeah, well we ain't asking. The big S doesn't take no for an answer. Naruto looked left, then right, and found no army in sight. Which meant. Wait, did they actually think 6 months were enough to make him move? Am I being underestimated? He touched a finger to his chin and looked over his shoulder, bemused. It feels like I'm being underestimated. Please tell me they're not being serious. Verosuke shrugged helplessly. You don't exactly look like an angel at the moment. Fair enough. His head bobbed in a nod as he idly batted the hellhound's hand free from his shoulder. Let's fix that. In an instant he shed his suit and allowed his halo to reappear, 10 golden wings blooming behind his back once more. More than a few of the hellhounds flinched, but credit where it was due, none of them backed down. Yet. Tell ya what, pivoting, he beamed at the unruly pack of dogs, whose name he hadn't bothered to ask. I'm a bit busy at the moment, and your boss didn't send nearly enough guys, so here's what we're gonna do. You and your doggos are gonna turn around, go back to whatever pen you crawled out from, and tell your boss that I'll meet with him when I'm good and ready. Promise me you'll do that, and there's no need for violence tonight. Sound good? Great. Without missing a beat, he pivoted on his right heel to face Kurama and Verosuke once more. I'm thinking we should go somewhere else. He pinched the bridge of his nose for emphasis. This place smells of wet dog. The lead hellhound decked him in the face, snapping his head to the side. Naruto sighed. Violence it is. With an annoyed look, he raised one hand, conjured a massive glowing Rasengan and brought it crashing down. The crackling orb of energy flew into the middle of the pack, exploding outward. 4 of the dogs yelped as the blast knocked them backwards into the brick wall behind the cafe. Verosuke's eyes widened in awe and relief. Yes, she shouted, thumping Naruto on the back. That was awesome, Naruto. 2 of the hellhounds scrambled up and lunged again. In one fluid motion, Naruto shifted. One hand performed more seals, while he simultaneously threw the other arm forward. Shadow clones appeared in an instant, one clone to each side of him. The clones tackled the 2 charging hounds, wrestling them to the ground. Naruto himself summoned a powerful gust of chakra wind with his other arm, sweeping the remaining dogs' legs out from under them. 2 more went flying, yelping as they hit the ground. Kurama released a low, impressed growl from as she returned to her seat, realizing he didn't need any help. Not bad at all. That's quite the technique. Naruto spared a quick grin at Kurama. Got a good teacher. Humming, he turned his focus back on the survivors. Oh, right, you're still here. His wings flitted out, lazily smacking them down into the street. They did not rise again. Silence fell. 6 unconscious hellhound were left slumbering in the street. The night air was still again except for distant city sounds. Naruto eyed one and gave them a nudge with his heel, lending them just enough energy to wake up. That one, the foolish leader who'd slugged him in the first place, stumbled upright, clutching at their ribs. All that precious bravado was nowhere to be seen now. In its place he saw only anger, and terror. Run along now. Naruto made a shooing motion with his right hand. Get. They got. He was still watching them limp away, tail between their legs, when Verosuke tackled him. She lunged forward and threw her arms around his waist from behind, resting her cheek against his shoulder with a giddy cry that set his heart racing. He could feel her body trembling with adrenaline as she spoke. I've never been more impressed, she whispered breathlessly. She squeezed him tight, and though the hug was fierce, Naruto felt the gratitude in every word. You really do live up to your reputation, Tilda. Blushing furiously, Naruto gently patted her back. I just wanted to keep you safe, he murmured. You okay? Verosuke nodded, holding on a moment longer as thought reluctant to let go. When they finally separated, she took a small step back and ran a hand through her hair. Normally in a moment like this she'd make a joke, but his actions had disarmed her somewhat, leaving her voice quiet and earnest. I owe you one, she said softly, her gaze locked on his. If you ever need anything, just ask. Naruto's heart fluttered at the sincerity in her eyes. Deal, he replied with a bemused grin. But maybe we should get back to our date. I have dessert waiting. That dessert wouldn't happen to be you now, would it? He batted her hand down. No. Boo, but fine. Verosuke giggled, a genuine smile lighting her face. Fine, she said, hooking her arm through his. Lead on, my brave ninja. Kurama rolled her eyes and crossed one long leg over another. Yes, bravo. Date is back on track, huzzah. Try to be mindful of stray puppies next time. Naruto laughed as he guided Verosuke back to the booth. It's been quite a night, huh? He remarked softly. Verosuke nodded, brushing away a stray scrap of soot from her dress. She settled next to him again and picked up a spoon of creme brulee that had miraculously survived the chaos. I gotta admit, she said as she savored the dessert, this is the best date I've had, well, ever. And I'm not just saying that. Tonight has been perfect. Why all this for me? Why, indeed, to prove a point, maybe. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, looking down at his hands. I want to show you that there's more to life than just random one-night stands and sex. I think you deserve someone who treats you right, even if it's just a date. Is that so wrong? Kurama clicked her tongue, but continued to savor her own dessert, content to let them have their moment, for now. Verosuke's gaze softened as she placed a hand on his arm. Naruto. He saw a flicker of vulnerability there and realized her guard was down. He could have moved in then and there, and she probably would have let him take her. Instead, he squeezed her hand gently and restrained himself. Noticing said restraint, Verosuke quickly masked her brief burst of vulnerability with a playful smirk. Don't get any ideas. She pretended to sit up straighter, smirking. I'm still a succubus, after all. A lot of guys say sweet stuff and then ha. She made a face and shook her head, then added quietly, but with you, I don't know. You're different. I wouldn't say no to more dates like these. Naruto felt his ears heat up. Difference good, right? Verosuke nodded and bit her lip. Very good, she whispered. Thanks for tonight. She gave his hand a final squeeze before letting go and taking another spoonful of dessert. Naruto smiled and tucked a stray lock of hair behind his ear. Despite everything around them, everything felt surprisingly normal. He couldn't remember the last time he'd smiled like this. All around them, Pentagram City's neon signs flickered and the night sky held another promise, whatever else happened, he thought, this night was one to remember. And then Kurama just had to chime in with her 2 cents. You're just trying to get into his pants, hussy. Maybe, but at least I'm honest about it. Naruto facepalmed. Hey, now. Tilda. Charlie Morningstar stood at the Hazbin Hotel's rooftop garden just after sunset, watching her guests from above. For once, the hotel's common area below hummed with an unexpected harmony. Angel Dust was clumsily attempting to teach Husk how to dance, while Nifty flitted around dusting confetti from a broken lamp. Even Serpentius sat quietly, tinkering with a strange contraption on the side. Even Emily had retreated to the balcony with her clipboard, busily scribbling notes down as she went. Velvet was actually helping here, and while that should be concerning, they actually seemed to be getting along under Vaggie's watchful gaze. For all intensive purposes, everyone seemed to be lost in their own little world. Alistair and Carmilla were nowhere to be seen, of course, but then again they often did their own thing. She had high hopes for them, too. As for Velvet, she could dream. This is real progress, she thought with a small grin. Sure, it was slow, but there it was. Signs that her rehabilitation program was working. Not long ago, nights like this had seemed impossible. Now, demons were trying. Somebody was trying to be better. Angel Dust spotted Charlie and gave her an exaggerated theatrical bow. Not bad, princess. We're getting a 2-step going here. Just wait till we take this shit on tour. Charlie chuckled and waved. The sincere praise warmed her heart. You are all doing great, she called down. See, change is possible. High above the moon was rising, a pale coral orb in the violet hell sky, casting a hopeful light. Who knew souls could be so cooperative? She whispered to herself. The residents of hell were full of surprises, but Charlie saw potential in each of them now. Little victories. Her contentment was interrupted by a sudden hush around her. The air grew still and the temperature dropped. Charlie turned and saw a swirl of smoke and light materializing at the far end of the balcony. Honey, I'm home, Tilda. Daddy, she exclaimed, stepping forward reflexively. She wrapped her arms around Lucifer Morningstar as he appeared. He smelled faintly of patchouli and something sweet like rubber ducks. Her father's ringmaster-style coat looked bright, and under his top hat his eyes twinkled, but tonight they held something she couldn't quite read. Hey there, kiddo, Lucifer said, ruffling her short blonde hair. He wore his usual grin, but it seemed a bit forced this time. The two stepped apart, and Charlie noticed her father's mood had shifted to something more serious. Lucifer cleared his throat and turned to admire the rooftop. You spruced the hotel up while I was gone again, didn't you? He looked around with a low whistle and nodded once. Looks even nicer than my old place, now. Ah, thanks. He said, attempting to lighten the mood with a joke. He held up his cane. But now, seriously, I came to see how you're getting along. Charlie held her breath as he studied her. Finally, he smiled, though it was softer, more genuine than it had been when he first appeared. You're doing well, he said. I see laughter. I see cooperation. He nodded approvingly. Good work, Charlie. A proud warmth lifted Charlie's chest. Thanks, Daddy. It's been hard, but everyone's trying. It's better than before. Lucifer paused, his gaze thoughtful. He glanced out over the city for a moment before meeting her eyes. Yes, better indeed. His expression grew distant for a second, then he shot her a quick, fatherly grin. However, he added, eyes flicking back to Charlie's face, I have something we need to discuss. Something concerning one of the new arrivals. Charlie stiffened, her smile faltering. The recent registry had brought a few surprises, but which one had her father's attention? Her mind raced through the names. No one too strange, except maybe, Naruto. Naruto's name didn't escape Lucifer's lips, but Charlie felt it hang in the air. Dad, what is it? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Which new arrival? Lucifer looked at her seriously now. I had a word with the 7 deadly sins. They want to talk about an anomaly among the newcomers. He gave Charlie a pointed look. Charlie's heart skipped. She didn't need to be told who he meant. She managed a small, firm nod. Naruto, you mean? Lucifer nodded slowly. Yes, him and that feisty fox of his. He chuckled. Probably remember their fight. Pride might not officially care about everybody, but this has them talking. There's curiosity about him. About you and your hotel. About what all this means for hell. Charlie frowned, trying to mask her concern. What does that mean for him? For me? To be honest, I don't know exactly, Lucifer admitted, stepping closer. His red eyes warmed for a moment as he looked at her. They may decide to change his status here. They may try to use him. He's unusual. I've managed to placate them for now, but it could be trouble, Charlie. She gulped. Dad, what are you getting at? He patted her shoulder, interrupting her. I trust you to handle it. Keep your friends close. If they want to discuss him, we'll face it together. Just be prepared for anything. His voice softened. You started all this with hope, and I'm proud. I didn't want you to be caught off guard in case happens. Charlie swallowed, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. Okay, I will, she said quietly. Inside, though, she worried. Naruto had become important to her, and she liked him. The idea of some council deciding his fate made her stomach twist. Remember, dear, Lucifer added, offering her a small, proud smile, a hint of his old self shining through his jovial facade. You're my daughter and you're stronger than you know. With another playful tip of his hat, he was gone, dissipating into mist and the faint, lingering scent of rubber ducks. Charlie let out a shaky breath and hugged her arms close to herself for comfort. The city lights below twinkled on as if nothing had happened. Yet everything had changed, hadn't it? The 7 deadly sins were interested in Naruto's. In her hotel, the pieces were moving fast in this game of hell. She looked out again, her resolve hardening. Whatever happened, she would stand by Naruto, and she knew she wasn't alone in that. Tonight had been a night of learning and strange alliances. If this was part of what was coming, she was ready to meet it head on. Tilda. The Vox Tower loomed over Pentagram City, a building of chrome and wires, glowing advertisement screens flashing with news. Inside, televisions lined every wall, each displaying a different channel. At precisely 10 bells, one large screen went silent, then burst into Alistair's grinning face. Red eyes and a bow tie. The radio demon had arrived. Alistair strolled down the marble corridor in style, cane tapping with every step. He looked splendid in his maroon suit, hair slicked back. His voice crackled like an old-timey radio as he giggled softly. Time to pay my old Vox a little visit. Vox's office was a riot of technology, monitors, gadgets, drones zipping around making him coffee. The demon overlord himself was hunched behind a glass desk, 2 thick cords jutting out from the back of his screen-like head. His television screen head flickered as he cycled through with a news broadcast. A bright anchor was announcing, breaking, Veronica Mayday's date with mysterious angel ninja is breaking hell's internet. The doorbell chimed, and Alistair stepped in, whistling cheerfully. Why, hello there, Vox. Gah. Vox wheeled in his plush cybernetic chair. His 2 eyes, one solid red, one spiraled black, narrowed. Alistair, he spat out. How'd you get in here? Last I checked, you're not exactly on the approved visitor list. Alistair spread his gloved hands. Oh, but why would I worry about lists? I'm just popping in to chat. No fuss. He winked. By the way, have you heard the latest news? Vox growled, slamming a fist on the desk. Don't try me. I have my resources, and I don't need any radio rattling nonsense from you. Alistair sauntered closer to a cluster of screens. With a flick of his cane, they all switched to the same footage. Naruto triumphantly fighting off hellhounds. Vox's mouth twisted in rage as the images replayed. You see this? Alistair tapped the screen with a disdainful look. Your precious world revolves around this now. Our heroic shinobi is trending citywide. It's a hit show you didn't even sell tickets for. He cackled, voice echoing. So adorable. You might want to write your next broadcast about that, Vox's face crackled with static anger. This is a nothing. A few silly cult followers, that's all. You know me, I control the signal. I can black them out. Alistair let out a theatrical gasp. Oh my, threaten me with power. My dear Vox, your empire had control, until everyone's eyes were on our ninja pal. And oh, I heard some chatter of this being a good thing for ratings, he said, tapping another button on the console. This caused the ticker below to scroll. Hashtag Fox Ninja Date hashtag Hell Trends followed by thousands of happy emojis. Careful, old friend, or you might find your audience drifting away. Vox bared his sharp teeth. Never. My audiences multiply daily. Alistair raised a finger and turned the broadcast back to Vox's dashboard. Then you won't mind keeping them all entertained, will you? He paused, leaning in with a conspiratorial grin. Because big things are on the horizon, my good fellow. Be sure to tune in. The radio demon laughed heartily and turned to leave, humming a jaunty tune as he walked out. Vox seethed, fists clenching cables around him. Alistair was gone as suddenly as he arrived, but his words echoed in the twisted silence of the control room. He slammed a button, changing all screens back to his own news channels. His fingers furiously typed commands, rerouting cameras and encrypting signals. The message was clear. He would not be overshadowed. But as the monitors flickered under his control, one line of Alistair's parting advice haunted him. Big things are on the horizon. What could the radio demon mean? A meeting of the sins? A power shift? Vox didn't know yet, but he would watch and plan. He had to keep his empire unshaken. Alone in the lofty tower, with the city's neon lights below, Vox took a steadying breath. For once, he admitted there were forces even he had to pay attention to. News, trends, demon councils, they were coming together in ways he couldn't ignore. With the static returning to his screens, he reminded himself, he controlled the flow. Big things, he muttered quietly. Let them come. It was a fine morning in hell, which is to say, the sky over Pentagram City glowed a dull red and the smell of brimstone mingled with fresh coffee. In the Happy Hotel's dining hall, Naruto Uzumaki sat with an awkward grin, trying to enjoy a hearty breakfast. Trying being the operative word. Around him, an eclectic group of demons and lost souls chattered and ate. Charlie Morningstar flitted about pouring refills with her usual cheery energy, very excited for the day's rehabilitation activities. Alistair, the infamous radio demon, lounged at the end of the table with a smile, humming a jazzy tune from the 1930s. Across from Naruto, Verosuke Mayday, a pink-skinned succubus pop star, stirred her latte, eyeing him over the rim with a predatory smirk. Next to her, Carmilla Carmen, a powerful overlord and Hell's top weapons dealer, sipped black tea, looking particularly irritated this morning. And at the head of the table sat Lucifer Morningstar himself, the king of hell, casually reading a newspaper. Lucifer's lips curved in amusement. The Lightbringer clearly knew more than he let on. Suddenly, all conversation hushed as Velvet made her entrance. Ordinarily, the petite overlord was usually energetic and impeccably fashionable, but today she hobbled into the hall with the gait of a newborn fawn. Velvet, the self-proclaimed backbone of the V's, and a social media savvy overlord, prided herself on poise, yet now each step was a careful wince. She had traded her usual heels for fluffy slippers and clutched the wall as she moved. A few onlookers raised eyebrows or snickered behind their hands. Lucifer peeked over his newspaper, golden eyes twinkling. Good morning, my dear Velvet, he purred innocently. My, you're looking sore again today. Did you sleep well? Velvet froze, a rosy flush creeping up her cedar brown cheeks. I'm fine, she snapped through gritted teeth, attempting to straighten her posture. Never better. With as much dignity as she could muster, she hobbled to an empty chair. Naruto couldn't help but glance over in concern. He remembered last night's punishment. She'd been up to no good again, and judging by Velvet's current state, he hadn't been quite as gently as he thought. He opened his mouth to maybe apologize or ask if she was okay, but before he could, a snort of laughter came from further down the table. Damn, somebody had a rough night, cackled Angel Dust, the spider demon porn star, twirling one of his fluffy pink head ears. He leaned over toward Velvet with a wicked grin. What happened, babe? You look like you got railroaded 6 ways from Sunday. He waggled his brows suggestively. Was it our little Naruto who did the railin'? Spill. I need details. Naruto nearly choked on his orange juice. Hey. He sputtered, face turning almost as red as the infernal sky. It's not. I didn't. Velvet's eyes flashed. Shut up, you nosy arachnid. She growled at Angel Dust. Nobody got railroaded. Despite her protest, her face was now crimson and her composure slipping. She lowered herself onto the chair gingerly. The moment her rear touched the cushion, a sharp twinge made her yelp and spring back up. A chorus of snickers went around the table. Husk shook his head and muttered like the grizzled bartender he was, too early for this crap, before taking a swig from his ever-present flask. Nifty, the one-eyed maid, zoomed over with concern. Oh dear. Miss Velvet, are you hurt? Do you need an ice pack? A donut pillow? The tiny maid demon already brandished a donut-shaped cushion seemingly from nowhere. Velvet batted her away, mortified. Lucifer's shoulders trembled with barely contained laughter. Careful, Velvet, you might bruise something, he teased. He then shifted his gaze to Naruto, a devilish grin spreading. I must say, Naruto, I'm impressed. It's not every day a newcomer leaves an overlord unable to walk straight the next morning. Naruto coughed and sank a bit in his seat. Hey now, it's not what it sounds like, he began, hands raised in defense. I only. Oh, Lucifer interjected, feigning innocence. So you didn't handle our dear Velvet with such thoroughness. He winked theatrically, and a few guests chuckled. My mistake then. Perhaps she merely tried a new dance move and pulled a muscle. At that, Alistair emitted one of his signature radio static chuckles. Ha ha ha, what a performance that must have been. He quipped, tipping his head toward Velvet. Do tell us next time you choreograph such a number, Velvet. I'd have broadcast it live. The radio demon's smile was positively gleeful, red eyes gleaming with mirth. Velvet had heard enough. Oh screw all of you. She snarled, slamming her palms on the table. Despite the fury in her voice, when she attempted to storm off, a jolt of pain in her backside made her flinch and slow to a careful shuffle. This only made Angel Dust laugh harder and Alistair grin wider behind his striped microphone. Charlie bit her lip, trying not to giggle as she moved to Velvet's side. The ever-compassionate princess of hell patted Velvet's shoulder. Are you okay? Maybe you should rest. I'm fine, babe, Velvet insisted, forcing a tight smile while still half hovering above the chair. I just need coffee. Strong coffee. She eased herself down onto Nifty's donut cushion with a defeated sigh. Across the table, Carmilla's gray eyes narrowed in disapproval at the spectacle. Carmilla Carmen was not known for emotional outbursts. As an overlord, she was usually calm and professional, but right now her lips were pressed in a thin line. Watching her rival Velvet be the butt of everyone's jokes, quite literally, should have been amusing, yet Carmilla's mood only soured further. Maybe it was because all this immature innuendo offended her sensibilities, or maybe it was something else entirely, something to do with a certain blonde human at the center of it. She huffed and set down her teacup with a clink. Some of us have actual business to attend to, she announced acidly. If the juvenile humor hour is over, perhaps we can move on. Lucifer arched a brow at Carmilla, smirking. Oh, someone's cranky. Jealous you didn't get an invite to last night's party, Carmilla dear. He drawled. Carmilla's eyes flashed red literally, a pulse of crimson light, a telltale sign of strong emotion in the weapons dealer demon. I warn you, Morningstar, don't test me, Carmilla said coolly, though the effect was undermined by her glowing eyes. She folded her arms and pointedly avoided looking at Naruto or Velvet. Lucifer chuckled and raised his hands in surrender, clearly enjoying every second of this gossip. Naruto groaned inwardly. This is getting out of hand. Look, for the record, he said loudly, hoping to end the speculation, nothing that crazy happened. Velvet and I just had a little disagreement, and I had to, discipline her. That's all. Across the table, Veronica nearly spit out her latte, choking on laughter. Discipline, huh? The pink succubus licked a drop of coffee from her lip and gave Naruto a sultry once-over. Honey, if that's your idea of discipline, I've got a list of bad girls, and boys, who'd line up for a session. She gave a throaty purr and winked shamelessly. Naruto's face somehow turned an even deeper shade of red. That's not. I didn't mean. He sputtered. This only prompted more laughter from Angel and a playful whistle from Husk. Charlie clapped her hands, cheeks pink. All right. Haha. Let's all settle down, please. She urged, still smiling but clearly trying to regain control of the situation. Velvet had a rough night in one way or another, but today is a new day and we have important work to do. Charlie gently rubbed Velvet's back, then shot Naruto an apologetic glance. The princess was nothing if not a peacemaker. Naruto, thank you for, handling things. I'm sure Velvet learned her lesson. Velvet muttered something under her breath that sounded like, stupid loudmouth blonde, and slurped her coffee, avoiding eye contact. Charlie cleared her throat. Moving on. Today's rehabilitation activity needs to be set up, and I could use a couple extra hands. Her gaze darted around the table, landing on Alistair, who perked up in interest, and Velvet desperately trying to become one with her chair to escape notice. Alistair. Velvet. Would you two help me with preparations this morning? Alistair's grin widened. He loved being included in Charlie's schemes for redemption, if only for the entertainment value when said schemes failed. Why, it would be delightful, my dear. He proclaimed with a dramatic flourish. Count me in. I can't wait to see what cheerful little extravaganza you have planned for these lost souls. The radio demon tipped his head toward Velvet, eyes gleaming. How about you, Miss V? Fancy some wholesome rehabilitation fun? Velvet looked like someone just offered her a glass of acid. You want me to help with your little redemption project? She asked incredulously. As an overlord herself, Velvet had zero interest in Charlie's agenda of turning sinners into do-gooders. In fact, she likely found the whole concept stupid, as most demons did. She shot a pleading look at Lucifer, hoping the king might excuse her. But Lucifer merely smiled benignly, clearly leaving it up to Charlie. The princess gave Velvet an encouraging smile that managed to be both gentle and intimidating, the sort only a Morningstar could pull off. Velvet exhaled and shrugged. Fine, whatever. Not like I have a choice, do I? Wonderful. Charlie clapped, entirely sincere. Thank you, really. I promise it'll be fun. Velvet just rolled her eyes and sipped her coffee, muttering, doubt it. Alistair chuckled under his breath, amused by Velvet's sour attitude. As Charlie began rattling off a to-do list for the rehabilitation event, Veronica abruptly stood and stretched her arms over her head. Speaking of fun, Charlie, darling, she cut in sweetly, mind if I steal our favorite blonde boy for a bit? I was hoping to get to know Naruto better. The succubus's tone left no doubt what getting to know implied. She sauntered over behind Naruto's chair and draped her hands over his shoulders possessively. Naruto stiffened. Veronica. He chuckled nervously, eyeing the sharp black nails now lightly tracing his jacket. I kinda promised to help with. Nonsense. Veronica interrupted, pressing a manicured finger to his lips. Charlie's got helpers now. She tossed a wink at Charlie. You said you needed a couple extra hands, right? You've got Alistair and Velvet. She curled her tail around Naruto's chair leg, will just be in the way. Charlie opened her mouth, then closed it again, considering. Well, I do have things covered with Al and Velvet, she said slowly. The innocent smile that bloomed on her face then was positively impish. Sure, a little break might do Naruto some good before we start. By all means, Veronica, show him around Pentagram City or something. Just have him back by lunchtime, okay. Naruto's jaw dropped. Wait, what now? He hadn't expected Charlie to agree so easily to Verosuke's request. But before he could reply, Lucifer leaned back in his chair with a smirk, eyes glinting like a cat who'd cornered a mouse. So, the King of Hell drawled, what about your other companion? The fox. She's been rather quiet lately. Naruto blinked. Kurama. Of course, Lucifer said, swirling his coffee lazily. She's a hard one to miss. 9 tails, sharp teeth, a glare that could strip paint. I hear she's been wondering when her favorite blonde plans to spend some time with her again. This snarky bastard. Naruto let out a low sigh. Yeah, I've been meaning to. Things have just been busy. Lucifer said knowingly, sipping from his cup. Well, can't keep a lady like that waiting. Dangerous habit. Charlie brightened, tying her hair back. Tell you what, Verosuke, you can have Naruto for the morning. Kurama can see him after lunch if she wants. That gives me time to set up our rehabilitation thingy for today with Alistair and Velvet. Verosuke pouted in exaggerated disappointment. Only the morning. You're no fun, princess. But then she smiled, fangs flashing. Fine, I'll take what I can get. She leaned down to whisper in Naruto's ear, loud enough for everyone to hear. Don't worry, Foxy. I'll make our morning together memorable. He granted her a flat gaze. No sex. Oi. Verosuke went scarlet, earning chuckles and smirks from around the table. Charlie gave him an encouraging thumbs up. Alistair waved like he was sending a child off to school. Velvet looked like she was enjoying the role reversal immensely. Carmilla rolled her eyes. Naruto groaned and stood up, muttering, all right, I'll catch up with Kurama after. She'll probably chew me out for making her wait. With pleasure, Verosuke purred, looping her arm through his and tugging him toward the door. From behind them, Angel Dust cackled, get it, stud. Husk grumbled something about crazy kids, and Lucifer raised his mug in a mock toast. Naruto could only grimace as he was towed away, already bracing for whatever this memorable morning would bring. The doors closed behind him and the succubus, leaving the rest of the hotel denizens to finish breakfast. Charlie clapped her hands, turning back to the task at hand. Okay, we've got work to do. She smiled brightly at Velvet and Alistair. Shall we, team? Velvet sighed dramatically and pushed herself up from her seat, wincing only a little. Let's just get this over with, she mumbled, trudging after Charlie. Alistair fell in step beside them, twirling his cane. Onward and upward, he proclaimed cheerfully. This promises to be very interesting, he. Behind them, Carmilla watched the trio depart with a furrowed brow. The morning's events left her with much to fume about. She wasn't entirely sure who she was more annoyed with, Velvet for being an embarrassing gossip magnet, Naruto for whatever he did to Velvet, and for being so damn popular all of a sudden, or perhaps herself, for even caring at all. As Verosuke's laughter faded down the hall and the others dispersed, she found herself alone at the table, her tea gone cold. She drummed her fingers once, deep in thought, then stood and swept out of the room in a whirl of black skirts. There were indeed actual business matters to attend to, but first, she had a phone call to make. Perhaps some of her contacts in Hell's inner circles would have useful information about Naruto Uzumaki. If this enigmatic angel could put an overlord in her place, Carmilla wanted to know exactly who, and what, they were dealing with. Tilda. Meanwhile, Charlie had led Alistair and Velvet to a spacious lounge that was currently cluttered with boxes of supplies. This was the hotel's common area, soon to be transformed for today's rehabilitation event. Sunlight, or whatever passed for it in hell, streamed in through tall windows, illuminating dust motes and the colorful motivational posters Charlie had plastered on the walls. Slogans like, change is possible, and, make hell a better place, were accompanied by cheerful cartoon demons holding hands. Velvet cringed at the saccharine decor. Alrighty, Charlie chirped, pulling out a clipboard. Thank you both for helping. I have a lot planned and it'll go faster with extra hands. Tilda. Velvet crossed her arms. I said I'd help, not that I'd be happy about it, she grumbled. Her tail swished impatiently. So what is this plan exactly? Another sing-along. A trust fall exercise. Should I be practicing Kumbaya on the ukulele? Her tone dripped with sarcasm. Charlie, ever optimistic, either didn't notice or didn't mind Velvet's attitude. Funny you mention those. I did consider a trust fall, but some of our participants have, trust issues. She started ticking off points on her clipboard, oblivious to Velvet's eye roll and Alistair's amused grin. So, here's the rough outline for today's Rehab Revival Day activities. She held up the clipboard for them to see. In cutesy handwriting with hearts dotting the I's, she had listed. Morning Motivation Circle. Everyone shares one good deed they've done or thought about doing. Team Scavenger Hunt. Find items in the hotel that represent each of the 7 virtues. We'll hide clues. Buddy System Trust Walk. Pairs take turns guiding each other blindfolded through an obstacle course. Note. Maybe skip for overlords with rivalries. Soul food bake-off. Bake treats without using sin, e.g., gluttony must practice moderation, lust makes something PG rated, etc. Sell them for charity. Redemption karaoke night. End the day with singing. Everyone performs a song that inspires them to be better. Charlie beamed as Alistair leaned in, adjusting his monocle to read. Velvet's jaw slowly dropped in horror with each bullet point. You want us to do what? The Fascionated blurted, snatching the clipboard. She scanned the list again as if hoping she misread it. This is, I don't even. Snarling, she pinched the bridge of her nose. Charlie, I'd rather be flayed alive than sing Kumbaya with a bunch of delinquent souls. Alistair chuckled, plucking the clipboard back with a flourish. Come now, it's not all bad, he said. I find the bake-off idea positively charming. I do love a good cooking challenge. And redemption karaoke. Priceless. The radio demon's shadow glitched behind him, as if laughing too. Might I suggest adding a live broadcast element? I could rig up some speakers, turn this into a radio talent show special. Charlie's eyes lit up. Really? You'd do that? Velvet made angry velvet noises in the background. But of course. Alistair bowed. What better way to spread the joyous news of would-be sinners attempting wholesomeness, than to literally spread it over the airwaves? We'll call it the Hazbin Redemption Hour, broadcasting all across hell. Velvet threw her hands up. Great. You'll humiliate us citywide instead of just within these walls. She sank onto a box labeled Art Supplies, with a dramatic sigh, then Winston stood again, rubbing her tender backside. This is a nightmare. Charlie put a gentle hand on Velvet's shoulder. I know it's out of your comfort zone, she said softly. Honestly, it's out of everyone's comfort zone. That's kind of the point. Charlie offered a sympathetic smile. Velvet, I really appreciate you volunteering. Volunteered might be a strong word, Velvet interrupted, flicking a gaze at Alistair. More like voluntold by Her Highness. Charlie giggled. Either way, I'm glad you're here. You're an overlord, which means other demons respect you. Velvet raised an eyebrow skeptically at that, but Charlie continued, if they see you giving this a chance, maybe they will too. Velvet snorted. Or they'll think I've lost my mind. She kicked an empty soda can across the floor. Her tone was biting, but there was a hint of uncertainty in it now. Alistair stepped forward, twirling his cane. My dear Velvet, surely even a trendsetter like you can appreciate trying something new. He said smoothly. Why, rehabilitating sinners could be the next big craze. Imagine the social media clout. Velvet shot him a withering look. Oh, please, Radio Grandpa. You think I care about clout from this? I run hell's social networks. If I post a selfie, I get 1 million likes in an hour. She flipped one of her candy-red pigtails over her shoulder in pride. That part wasn't a boast. She truly was a social media influencer overlord. This, she gestured around at the boxes of crafts and the sunny posters, is not on trend. Alistair's grin never faltered. Then perhaps you can make it on trend, he countered. If anyone can, it's the backbone of the V's, herself, He gave an exaggerated gentlemanly bow, tipping an imaginary hat. Velvet blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected flattery. Well, she struggled to form a retort. Was the radio demon actually complimenting her? Nice try, she finally muttered, cheeks darkening a shade, from annoyance, certainly not embarrassment. Butter me up all you want, I'm still not convinced. Charlie decided to intervene before Velvet's temper flared again. She clapped her hands in a brisk, business-like way. All right, we have a lot to prepare and not much time. Velvet, would you set up the scavenger hunt clues? You're great with design and aesthetics. Maybe you could hide the virtue items but make it, Instagrammable. Velvet tapped her chin, considering despite herself. HMPH. Well, I do hate poorly designed visuals. She gave a begrudging nod. Fine, I'll hide your cheesy virtue items, but I'm making them stylish. If I have to be involved, it's gonna look good. Without waiting for further approval, she snatched a bag of virtue symbols, little plushies labeled charity, chastity, kindness, etc. and started stalking off to hide them around the hotel. Charlie beamed. Thank you. That's perfect. She turned to Alistair. Could you handle the sound system, Alistair? I love the broadcast idea. Maybe involve Emily. I think she's still doing paperwork, but she'd probably jump at a chance like this. With pleasure, Alistair replied. A bit of radio static crackled as he summoned a vintage microphone from thin air. I'll have this place singing by nightfall. In the meantime, I'll also whip up an obstacle course in the courtyard for our trust walk. I have some ideas to make it delightfully challenging. He chuckled, no doubt planning hidden pitfalls or comical traps, nothing lethal, probably. Charlie nodded enthusiastically, choosing to trust Alistair's ideas. That's great. I'll take care of the baking supplies and sign up sheets for each activity. She glanced toward the doorway through which Velvet had gone. And I should make sure Velvet doesn't hide the virtue plushies too well, or set them on fire out of spite. An excellent plan, Alistair agreed, eyes glinting with mirth. That one has a spark in her. Careful she doesn't burn down your hotel. Charlie gave a little laugh and headed off to follow Velvet, leaving Alistair to conjure speakers and stage lights from his shadowy powers. As she exited the lounge, clipboard in hand, the princess allowed herself a tiny, hopeful smile. Chaotic as this morning had been, everyone was now engaged in something productive for the rehabilitation project, even the reluctant Velvet. Her dream of redemption for sinners might be a long shot, but moments like this made it feel just a bit more achievable. If Naruto's presence has done anything, she mused, it's brought an unusual energy to the hotel. He had somehow wrangled Velvet into cooperation, by rather unorthodox means, and even now was forging bonds, or at least interactions, with others like Verosuke. Unlikely friendships, new tensions, strange alliances, it was messy, but change always was. Charlie hummed a little tune as she went to supervise Velvet. Tilda. High above, in the gleaming spires of heaven, one particular angel had been observing the morning's events through a golden scrying pool. And her patience was at a breaking point. Sarah hovered over the pool with her wings spread wide. The reflection in the water showed Naruto being led out of the hotel arm in arm with Verosuke, and the sight made Sarah's blood boil. Her grip on the pool's marble rim tightened until fine cracks formed in the stone. This is outrageous, she hissed under her breath. She had been watching Naruto's sojourn in hell intently, charged with monitoring any potential violations. Naruto's very presence among demons was already a concern, one Sarah had reluctantly allowed under the claim of rehabilitation research. But seeing him getting entangled with a den of iniquitous hellions, being seduced by a succubus no less, and fraternizing with overlords. It was too much. The plan was supposed to demonstrate that sinners could not truly change, thereby justifying heaven's harsh measures. Instead, Naruto was gallivanting around as if on a pleasure tour. The gall. Sarah's heart pounded, a mix of fury and something dangerously close to envy swirling inside her. She'd been the one to originally approve the extermination program ages ago to keep Hell's population in check, precisely to prevent demons from growing powerful enough to threaten heaven. Order and discipline were her hallmarks. She prided herself on being composed, rational, righteous. Yet here she was, feeling anything but composed. And whose fault was that? In the pool scene, Verosuke was all but hanging off Naruto, whispering in his ear. The angelic blonde looked flustered, but he wasn't resisting the succubus's pull as strongly as Sarah would have liked. And earlier, the way everyone teased about him possibly sleeping with that overlord Velvet, Sarah's stomach had twisted into knots at the thought. The impropriety. She could at least excuse him trying to prove a soul's potential for goodness, not indulging demons' lustful games. And worse, a small, treacherous part of Sarah's mind whispered that she was upset because a treacherous part of herself wished she could be the one by Naruto's side, guiding him, keeping him safe from Hell's corruption. Instead, she was stuck watching from on high as he drifted further into the clutches of sin incarnate. Verosuke giggled in the scrying image, leaned in and tried to kiss Naruto. Credit where it was due, he resisted stubbornly, kept her at arm's length, but her depredations didn't stop there. As she looked on aghast, the sly succubus linked her tail around Naruto's waist slyly and took off her top followed by the rest of her clothes and dragged Naruto underwater. Together, they vanished. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. Sarah snapped. Enough. With a sudden motion, Sarah flipped the heavy oaken desk behind her. In a crash of paper and quills, the entire desk went tumbling, scattering heavenly reports everywhere. Two cherub assistants in the hallway jumped at the loud bang and fled from the noise. And well that they did, too, because inside Sarah's office, the seraphim's chest heaved as she tried to catch her breath. Hot anger coursed through her veins. Anger, jealousy, worry, all churning together as she spat curses that would make a sailor flush. Damnable dirty dastard. Glancing up, Sarah spied her reflection in a cracked wall mirror. Halo cracked, pale hair disheveled, usually radiant skin flushed with wrath, and her wings, her 6 pristine wings, were streaked with black. Horror punched through her rage like a dagger in the dark. Black veins crawled along a few feathers, marring their pearlescent glow. In her outburst, she hadn't noticed the corruption seeping in. Now she looked even worse than before. And no, she gasped. Her voice quivered as she twisted to inspect the damage. It wasn't a full fall. Not yet. The black taint was subtle, just tips of some feathers, but it was unmistakable. Such was what happened when an angel succumbed to sin. Be it fury, envy, pride, whatever mix of emotions had fueled her tantrum, it was literally staining her. Tears pricked at the corners of Sarah's eyes. She knew better than to let her emotions run wild. She was a seraphim, for heaven's sake. She was supposed to be an exemplar of virtue and self-control. How many times had she been warned? Adam. Sarah's heart sank further. If Adam changed as that bastard was, or the other angels saw this, if they realized she was on the verge of falling, it would ruin everything. Her position, her plans, they'd strip her of command, maybe even cast her out before she could blink. A timid knock came at the door. Sarah whirled around, yanking a velvet curtain over the scrying pool to hide its view of hell. Ma'am, came a muffled female voice, likely Lute. Is everything all right? We heard a crash. Sarah forced her voice into a semblance of calm. Everything's fine, she called, pressing her back against the door to keep it shut. Just a minor mishap. Don't come in. She frantically preened her wings, trying to smooth the blackened patches. A few tainted feathers came loose in her hands. She stared at them, trembling. This can't be happening. Outside, the voices faded, the other angels seemingly respecting her wishes. Sarah quickly locked the door and closed all the blinds. Soft heavenly light still poured in, but she felt safer in the dimness for the moment. She sank to the marble floor amidst strewn papers and appended ink pots. Head in hands, she tried to steady her breathing. What am I doing? She whispered to herself. This level of personal investment in someone, even an angel, was beyond unprofessional. It was dangerous. Adam had seen it from a mile away and warned her, and she, in her pride, insisted she had it under control. Sarah had bristled then, assuring Adam and herself that her interest was purely scientific, strategic. She simply wanted to prove that hell's denizens could never truly change, that even the best of humans, dropped into that pit, would falter, vindicating their cause. It wasn't personal. Now, holding blackened feathers, Sarah bitterly realized how wrong she'd been. Perhaps her original intent had been righteous, but along the way, Naruto's earnestness and spirit had touched her. Seeing him try so hard even in hell's depths, forming bonds with demons rather than destroying them, it stirred conflicting feelings in her. Part of her admired him, part of her ached for him, and part of her feared he might actually succeed in changing a demon, something Sarah had believed impossible. If Morningstar's, or rather his daughter's rehabilitation project worked, even a little, it would upend the justification for exterminations. It could make Sarah's life's work, her hard-line stance, look cruel. But more than that, the thought of Naruto perhaps staying in hell, with her, Sarah's role in his life rendered moot. Or worse, him being hurt or corrupted by those she deemed beneath him. It ignited a dangerous mix of jealousy and panic in her heart. A soft tap sounded from the window. Sarah's head snapped up, feathers bristling, but it was only a white dove perched on the sill, one of heaven's messengers. It cooed, oblivious to her inner turmoil. Sarah shooed it away with a gentle wave, and it fluttered off in a flurry of down. Taking a shuddering breath, Sarah rose to her feet. She carefully plucked the remaining blackened feathers from her wings, biting back tears at each tiny stab of pain. The wings would regenerate new plumage in time, she told herself. If she could control herself from here on. She retrieved a silken shawl and draped it over her damaged wings to hide any remaining dark traces. A glance in the mirror showed her presentable again, outwardly, at least, once she wove some light over the cracks in her halo. The inner tempest was another matter. A knock came once more, this time firm and authoritative. Sarah straightened, hastily wiping her eyes. Yes. The door opened without her leave, only one person would do that. Adam sashayed inside, ducking slightly under the door frame. Even altered, the archangel cut an imposing figure, tall great golden wings folded at his back and a stern, ageless face. She took in the state of the office, the overturned desk, scattered documents, and Sarah's shaken expression, with a hard, knowing gaze. Sarah. Adam's tone was calm, but there was an undercurrent of "I told you so." She stepped over a spilled inkwell, golden eyes never leaving her face. Sarah felt her stomach twist in shame. Adam's eyes flicked down, noticing the crumpled black-tipped feathers on the floor near her feet. A moment of tense silence hung between them. Sarah opened her mouth to explain, to defend herself somehow. Adam, I. The altered angel raised a hand to stop her. A muscle in her jaw tightened as she let out a slow sigh. Then, to Sarah's surprise, Adam's expression softened just a bit, and she merely shook her head. I warned you, she muttered, as if to herself, or perhaps to the absent heavenly court that should have heeded the signs. Then Adam looked Sarah in the eyes. Sarah's throat tightened. Words failed her. What could she say? That she was right. She was. Her wings, still hidden under the shawl, felt heavier than ever. Adam stepped closer, boots crunching on fallen parchment. For a moment, it looked like she might reach out, to console her or to reprimand her, she wasn't sure. In the end, she did neither. She simply stood by her side, staring at the curtained scrying pool that still faintly glowed with hell's image beneath. Come on, boss. You're better than this. Get a grip. Sarah swallowed and refused to look Adam in the eye. I don't know what you mean. Bull and shit. The ravishing redhead rolled her eyes and planted a fist on her hip. You're coming up on a fork in the road. You can either go up, or down. Left or right, east or west. I can't choose your path for you, I've got my hands full with loot. It's your choice. Adam's golden wing brushed hers for just a heartbeat, a gesture of solidarity, then she turned to leave. At the doorway, she paused and added without looking back. I hope for your sake, that you make the right one. The door closed behind her with a resounding click. Sarah stood there in the quiet, Adam's words echoing painfully in her mind. Just another sinner. She clenched her fists. Adam was right, and wrong. Naruto wasn't just anything to her. Clearly, that was the problem. But her duty had to come first. She would steel herself, bury these reckless emotions, and do what needed to be done. Wouldn't she? Taking a deep breath, Sarah went about righting her desk and tidying the mess, each motion mechanical and determined. When she finally dared to lift the curtain on the scrying pool again, the image showed an empty street in hell, Naruto and Verosuke already gone from view. She had no idea if he'd lain with that vixen or not. Hopefully not. The idea of another she-devil having her way with him, it burned. A splitting headache racked her. Sarah's reflection trembled on the surface of the water. She straightened her spine, narrowed her eyes, and in that moment her face hardened with resolve. If Naruto's presence in hell proved too disruptive, if he threatened the grand design and her own composure, then heaven would have to intervene. I won't let fall prey to these temptations. She hissed at herself, I'll fix this. Even if I have to drag him out of hell myself. Oh, honey, is that what you believe? It's almost sad. Sarah startled. Who said that? Down here. Against her better judgment, she gazed down. Errors were made. Her reflection smiled back at her from within the scrying pool, warped and twisted, wings black, halo sundered, eyes ablaze with ethereal green glow. A pair of horns jutted from her head, dark as night. The entity that was and was not her sneered silently, smiling with her perfect face, dusky visage lilting into a sneer. She tilted her head, and to her horror, her reflecting mirrored the motion. Then, to her horror, her mirror image raised a dainty hand and waved, fingernails crooked into glowing white claws. What sorcery was this? What manner of madness was this? Was her very mind beginning to fracture? As she looked on, the mirror image smiled back at her. You want him? Incredulous, she bridled, unable to help herself. I do not. Yes, you do. I don't. Do tilde. Sarah overturned the scrying pool with a frustrated shriek, ruining her robes as she splashed water and light alike across the floor. Her reflection vanished with a tittering laugh. Someone shouted in the hall, but she didn't hear them, because that laughter persisted, ringing in her ears endlessly. Mocking her, haunting her. Damn him. With a frustrated cry, she slumped to her knees, buried her head in her hands, tucked both wings over herself and wept. Far below, unseen by Sarah's gaze, a pair of black feathers drifted down from heaven's skies, dissolving into soot long before they reached the earth. Tilda. Naruto looked up to the heavens with a frown. Had he heard something just now? No, not something at all. But rather someone. Sarah. You're going back. Just for a little while. Naruto made a pinching motion between his thumb and forefinger as Charlie looked on with watery eyes. There's something I need to look into. I won't be gone long. But we're finally starting to see some real progress down here. A blonde brow rose. Well, the princess faltered a little beneath his bemused stare and scratched the back of her head, sorta. Serpentious and angel dust are really close to making a breakthrough, I can just feel it. The snake in question looked away from the latest gadget he was constructing. Excuse me. Angel flopped over the bar, shot glass in hand. Break what now? Right, paragons of nobility, those two. Naruto cast an errant glance to the crimson skies above as he spoke, frowning thoughtfully to himself. Heaven remained inert as always above, burning bright white in the night, yet despite its silence he couldn't shake the foreboding feeling of genuine concern tugging at what passed for his soul these days. He'd felt something earlier, you see, a surge of nascent negativity so powerful that he'd sensed it even down here in the depths. And for a moment he could have sworn he heard a voice. Sarah's voice. Something was wrong up there. Or had gone wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. He would be the first to admit he and Sarah disagreed on many things, a great many things indeed, but he didn't wish any ill will upon her, let alone harm. Why would he? Despite their disagreements he didn't hate her, didn't hate anyone really, he hadn't hated anyone in a long time. Well, maybe Lute and Adam, but even that was more of a strong dislike on his part than true hatred. Maybe that arrogant angel had finally come to his senses. Stranger things happened. Ideally, he'd prefer to know beforehand if heaven was about to stab him in the back again. Not that he thought they would. Sarah had a bad hand, she'd exhausted all of her cards. With Emily on his side and Adam out of commission, there wasn't much she could do, short of leading an angelic invasion down here herself. All the more reason to confront her now before she did something truly reckless. He didn't dare leave a shadow clone behind either, for fear of what the girls might get up to with it or worse, allowing the doppelganger to start another fight while he was away. Best to remove himself from the equation entirely while he was away. Really, this was a sound plan. Only problem was, well. Charlie. Or rather, Charlie's present position. She'd currently latched onto his leg like a limpet and wasn't keen on releasing him. With a sigh, He raised the entrapped limb and glowered at her as he balanced on his unrestrained leg. Charlie, come on, let me go. It's not like I'm leaving you alone. Emily will still be here. It's not the Sami. She all but whined the word at the last, clutching even closer to him still as buried her face into his knee. Don't leave. It's gotten so much livelier with you here. Heat surged up the back of his neck. He really wasn't used to taking compliments, even in the afterlife. I haven't done that much for the hotel, ya know. Behind him, Kurama snorted into a palm. You have. Charlie glared at both of them, fangs flashing for a moment. You've helped out so much. Don't say otherwise. Had he'd nearly been seduced by a succubus, tangled with two overlords, fought Charlie's father, gotten into a terribly complicated situation with Kurama, then somehow made Emily follow him into this madness. That wasn't exactly a glowing recommendation. I mean, I've only brought 5 folks here. Charlie growled over his words. 4 is better than none. You can't leave. This was going nowhere. Naruto casting a despairing look Vaji's way. A little help. Babe, come on. His fellow angel hooked an arm under her lover's limbs as she tried to tug her free. He said he's coming back. Let's just calm down and. Charlie bared her teeth and made angry Charlie noises. Vaji balked outright. Did you just hiss at me? Naruto couldn't quite contain his laughter. The fallen angel rounded on him. Don't encourage her. I'm not, honest. Truth be told, he'd grown rather fond of this feisty girl and her friends. She'd brought light and life into what he thought would be an otherwise dull afterlife for him. Assuming this was, in fact, his afterlife and not some grand mix-up in the cosmic scheme of things. He would miss everyone down here, brief though his absence would be. Still, he had to go. He could feel something tugging at him, and it wasn't the persistent princess perched on his leg. Working together, the two of them managed to pry the still upset Charlie off him. Kicking and screaming, of course, honestly made him feel a bit bad. Technically speaking, they were in uncharted waters here. He was probably the first angel in forever to show interest in the underworld after Charlie's dad, and poor Lucy was trapped down there. Wait, come to think of it, hadn't her mom vanished out of the blue and never come back? He recalled Lucy telling him that. For all he knew, they had a conversation just like this. Now here he was, doing something similar. Hoo boy, lot to unpack there. Look, he scratched the back of his head with a wry chuckle. I promise I'll come back, alright. Have you ever known me to break a promise? Charlie leaned against Vaji and held out her hand, one digit curled out toward him. Pinky promise. What are you, 6? Her girlfriend tutted, but her words lacked their usual rancor. Naruto hooked his little finger in hers. Cross my heart, hope to die. Stick a needle in your eye. Charlie finished with a watery smile and a bittersweet laugh besides. Didn't think you knew that one. There's a lot you don't know about me. Her face flushed. About that, well, she looked to Vaji, then squirmed a little when the latter flushed. I mean, we were wondering if. It's nothing. Vaji clamped a hand over her mouth before she could finish. Never mind. Hey, this was your idea. You wanted to ask. Shush. Naruto quirked a blonde brow as Charlier was summarily dragged back into the hotel, leaving him alone. In truth, he'd expected a noisier farewell. Kurama wasn't happy to see him go, but after they shared a fist bump, least she seemed to understand why, even if she was being a bit surly about it. I swear, if you come back with another broad, I will do things to you. Heat burned up the back of his neck all over again. As for the others, well. Veronica had taken one look at him after he'd announced his intention to leave, scoffed, and locked herself in her room. Carmen had cussed him out in Spanish and stormed off. He couldn't blame her for the cold shoulder. They probably thought he wasn't coming back. He'd make it up to her. Both of them. As for Velvet. Gotcha. A finger jabbed him between the shoulders, causing him to jump and his manifold wings to twitch. He cast a baleful glare over his shoulder, right eye twitching just so. Was that necessary, Vel? His least favorite overlord grinned up at him. Gotta get my kicks in while I can. Pivoting to face her fully, he crossed both arms before her chest and stared her down. She scoffed, planting a fist on her hip as she leaned forward to leer at him. Why the long face, Whiskers? You gonna miss me that much? He didn't quite know what to say to her, or if he even ought to for that matter. Should he bother? Complicated could hardly begin to describe things between the two of them. She'd originally come to the hotel to spy on him for crying out loud before he'd set her straight. She talked a good game, but folded under pressure like a house of cards. Even now her leering grin amused him, if only because he knew she'd buckle the instant he applied all the pressure. Oi, she crossed both arms before her bosom, starting to freak me out now. You gonna talk? Gimme a goodbye kiss or something. Naruto frowned at that remark. Sure enough, when he leaned forward Velvet's smirk faltered and she was the one to balk. I was kidding. She flailed her hands at him in a mad panic, face flushing darker than her hair. Not so close. He smirked as she closed her eyes, leaned in the rest of the way and. Hey, stop. My heart isn't ready for this. Flicked her forehead. Velvet's eyes snapped open. You're some kinda asshole, you know that. He pinched her cheek for good measure, because he could. Takes one to know one. She pulled free and elbowed him with a huff. Right, headed back up to them pearly gates, are ya? Just for the day. Try not to burn the place down while I'm away. She snorted. No promises. Not to worry. Alistair went swaggering by, chuckling into a fist. We'll fare just fine without you. Naruto rolled his eyes and promptly flipped him off for good measure. Now is that anyway for an angel to behave? This from the strawberry pimp. Haha, fuck you Tilda. No, fuck you. They butted heads all over again, growling at one another. Alistair reached for his staff. Naruto conjured a Rasengan to his right hand. He didn't want to leave with a right, but if this bastard was asking for it. Velvet hooted in the background, camera flashing like a strobe light as she took countless pictures. Just kiss already. Hell no. I would sooner gargle glass. Her words were akin to flicking a switch. Naruto gagged as he jerked backwards, but it was the former overlord who reacted most viscerally of all. With a noise akin to radio static he pivoted and smacked the phone out her hand with his staff, knocked it to the floor where he brought his foot down with a harsh crunch, shattering the device. Velvet cackled. Too late. Already posted the pics Tilda. Alistair's resultant smile had entirely too many teeth. My dear, he loomed over her, horns sprouting from his head, if you ever suggest something so obscene as intimacy between me and this blonde buffoon ever again, I will tear your soul apart and broadcast your screams to every denizen in the dark. Are we clear? She waggled a dark brow at him. Pretty vocal there. Methinks the radio demon doth protest too much Tilda. Alistair garbled white noise and would have maimed her if it weren't for Naruto reeling him backward. Honestly, he was almost tempted to let him. He might have too, if someone hadn't protested. You haven't left yet, have you? Emily swooped down from the balcony above, paperwork in hand, trailing loose sheafs of parchment as she went. One of them smacked Naruto in the face. He had time enough to skim over the words, Grand Redemption Plan, before the small seraphim forcibly plucked it from his hand and returned it to the countless documents festooning her arms. Nope, he waved lazily. Still here. Did you need something? Yes. She all but thrust her forehead against his, grinning from ear to ear as her nose brushed his own. You're going to speak with Sarah, right? Are the two of you finally going to make up? Gah, personal space. Had she no concept of it? Velvet scoffed aloud. Make out, more like. Alistair thumped her over the head. Emily tilted hers with a soft hum. This time, Naruto found himself leaning further back. Woo-oh. He didn't much like the speculative look in his fellow angel's eyes just now. It concerned him. He hastily moved to avert disaster with his response. I'm gonna talk with her, yeah. Knock some sense into her noggin. Emily made happy Emmy noises and the moment passed. That's so wonderful. Will you be gone long? Maybe a day at most. He shrugged a shoulder. Can I trust you to keep things running with Charlie down here? Of course. The smaller seraphim saluted, lost a few papers for it, yelped, then darted hither and yon to retrieve them. Too darn cute. He couldn't help but take pity and help her. And if their hands happened to touch during the process, then surely that was his coincidence, no. Say, when I get back, I was thinking we could. Emily perked up, dark eyes shining. Yes. Naruto paused, keenly aware of Velvet and Alistair staring. The latter wore a shit-eating grin, the absolute bastard. Velvet had somehow produced a second phone from Sage knew where and had it trained firmly in his direction. He had no doubt that she was recording every second of this. Flushing, he beckoned Emily closer and leaned in to whisper into her ear. Much to his surprise blushed to the very roots of her hair. Oh, my. Why was she blushing? Oi. He was just talking about holding hands and cuddling crying out loud. Also, might need your help with the portal, he admitted, drawing back to scratch his head. Still haven't figured out how to reliably make those without them blowing up in my face. I'd have to fly up there without one, and I'd rather not let everyone know I'm coming, Sue. Emily squeaked happily. Leave it to me. With a wave and flick of his wrist, she carved a pale portal in the air, clear as day. Pausing just long enough to give him a quick hug, she ushered him through. Good luck Tilda. Tilda. Adam saw the portal from on high. Kicking up her legs, she heaved a hearty sigh. Finally. The hell took you so long? Get your ass in there and fix this shit. Now, to keep Luke distracted while those two blockheads made up. Wait a minute. Where in the hells had Luke gone? Her smirk became a frown. No you don't. Tilda. Portals were no fun. Naruto felt his stomach clench as he stepped out of Emily Gateway onto the promenade of heaven, The sudden shift between one realm and another not only left him feeling dizzy, but fair nauseous besides. Staggering a little, he planted his right hand against the first wall he found for balance, then shook his head to clear it. How do angels do that? He grumbled under his breath. The next thing he noticed was the silence. It was so darn quiet. He found himself missing the noise of the hotel almost immediately. He'd always been a social creature, you see, and his brief soiree in the underworld had done little to change that. Still, taking a portal was a hell of a lot easier than flying straight up to the pearly gates, and far less conspicuous. Emily had even teleported him into a relatively secluded sidewalk near the embassy, which presented him with a clear path to his goal. No one had seen him yet, though that would probably change if he lingered her over long. Right, then. It wasn't all that hard to sense Sarah. Way up here it was so much easier to sense negativity, he wasn't drowning in it. She, however, was. Why? He could understand her being cross with him, but this was well beyond the pale. Her soul was swimming in conflicting emotions, anger, jealousy. What did she have to be jealous about? And a deep sorrow that permeated to the very depths of her being. Just what had happened while he was away? Only one way to find out, he supposed. He sensed someone behind him just then, a spark of anger just of sight around the bend. It wasn't Sarah. A muscle jumped in his jaw. For the love of, I don't have time for this. He sighed. I know you're there, Loot. Show yourself. No such luck. Straightening up, he pushed himself off the wall and glared in the direction of the negativity. If you won't come out, then I'll drag you out. Radiant light shone behind him before he could take a single step. All 10 of his wings flared outward instinctively in response, ready to defend. He'd felt this before when he'd flown too high. This overwhelming sense of peace, like his very self, was being stripped away. That bittersweet sensation of all your worries and concerns falling to the wayside as it became difficult to think, like your head was filled with cotton candy. The source was directly behind him. Pivoting in place, he found himself faced with a towering, tall, beautiful winged woman resplendent in white and golden robes, shining pure as the dawn, brighter than the sun. As he looked on, she drifted down from on high and held out a hand to him. He couldn't sense a single iota of animosity in her. She was just so nice. Was it possible to be too nice? Was that a thing? Gods, but she was big. She was even taller than Sarah. Welcome home, my child. Her voice was honey wrapped in sugar, velvety sweet. We have awaited your return. He bristled. Be at peace, my wayward son. You have nothing to fear from me. She smiled even as the question formed on his lips. You may address me as the speaker. Naruto lifted his chin and marshaled the tattered threads of his thoughts, forcing himself to focus. Speaker of what? She smiled. It was answer enough, more than enough. His eyes widened. The big cheese, huh? Well, don't I feel special? Her face dimpled in a smile, gentle and benevolent. Blunt as ever, I see. The speaker of God simply smiled, as though he were an open book to her, his every thought hers to read. He didn't like it. You did well to return in such a timely manner. So speaking, she gestured to the buildings above with a robed arm. The one you know as Sarah mourns. She grieves. She hurts. She aches. Her voice dipped a little there at the last and her omnipresent smile faded, betraying the first note of concern since they'd met. You must go to her. Quickly. Now. Before it is too late. Naruto glanced back, following her pointer finger. Well, I did come here to talk to her. When he looked back, the speaker was long gone, having vanished into thin air. A stray shiver shook his shoulders. Right, gotta watch out for that. Anyone who could appear and disappear without him noticing was somebody to be wary of. Even if she did seem so darn nice. Luke must have scarpered at some point, because he didn't sense her anywhere nearby. Fine by him, one less problem for him to deal with. He didn't have time for her, and it wasn't as though she could do anything to harm him anyway. She was even weaker than Adam. From there he took wing and made his way to the embassy. Sarah wasn't in her office. That was his first concern. He'd thought she'd be hard at work, but she wasn't. Apparently she'd retired to her rooms. A wayward cherub encountered in the halls told him the way. By then he knew it would be impossible to conceal his return. Cherubs liked to talk, and he'd be the gossip of the afterlife soon enough. Best get this done and get gone before trouble started. In short order he found Sarah's quarters. Her door was locked. Not big surprise. He considered announcing his presence with a knock, then thought better of it, fearing she might flee. He could hardly afford to break it down either. She'd definitely lash out at him, and frankly, he wasn't here for a fight. Nothing else for it, then. With a quick slash of his wings, he quietly carved an entrance in the nearest wall and walked through. Anyone walking by would notice, but it was better than the alternative. No response came. The room was dark and heavy with incense, dimly lit by golden candles, providing scant illumination that waxed and waned, casting flickering shadows on the wall. Even with his superior psi, He could scarcely see a thing at any given moment. He squinted into the gloom and grimaced at what he found there. Were those scratch marks in the walls? Like someone had dragged their fingernails through the plaster. How unexpected. He'd half expected her to flip a desk or fling a chair at him. To shout and scream at the very least, to rage at him for being a foolish soul, and jeopardizing the lot of him with his naive behavior and the like. Sarah did none of those things. On the contrary, she was asleep in her cot, back turned to him, wing tucked into her shoulders as she slumbered fitfully. Did angels need sleep, let alone a seraphim? Supposedly he outranked her, but still, it was odd to think that she'd actually sleep like a normal person. Glass crunched under his feet when he moved. Through the gloom he glimpsed a broken mirror nearby. Who would do such a thing? If so, why? Unease kicked at his heart, bringing with it a nagging sense of dread. Something had happened here. Something bad, and he could still barely see anything. For a single irrational moment he honestly considered turning tail and just getting the hell out of here. Staying was going to make things complicated, he just knew it. Better to turn tail and not bother with this. Better not to care. Better to leave. And yet he couldn't help himself. He inched closer, careful to avoid the shattered shards underfoot. Soft steps brought him to her side, and still, she didn't stir. What do? Did he wake her? He was tempted to. At length, he took a hold of her shoulder and reluctantly rolled her over, forcing her to face him. Come on, sleepyhead. This ain't the time for a cat nap. What he saw there made him hiss. Her halo was cracked, her wings stained black and makeup ruined, tear tracks on her cheeks. They were fresh. She'd been crying in her sleep. Fallen. The word burned in his mind. She was falling, or very close to it. Just what had happened while he was away? What could have done this to her? Naruto reached out. Hey. Sarah sensed the movement and latched onto his hand with ferocious force, startling him. He froze at once, fearing she was awake, but no, although her face twisted in agony and she curled herself around his arm with a mewl of pain, her gaze remained screwed shut. Tears pushed itself through the long lashes of her eyes as she mumbled in her sleep. Don't go, please. I can't hold on. Damn it. Pity kicked hard at his heart like an angry mule, trampling all thoughts of escape. He didn't have it in him to wake her, not when she was like this. Someone had done this to her. He refused to believe she could have allowed this to happen to herself, and he needed answers. Answers he wouldn't get when she was in such a sorry state. Waking her up wasn't an option, either. So much for a quick exit. With a long-suffering sigh, careful not to release her hand, he sat by her bed, plonked down, laid his head in his arms, and waited for her to wake. A wry, exasperated smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. And so my watch begins. What do you mean? Uzumaki went back to heaven? Velvet winced, leaned back in her chair, and held her phone well away from her left ear as a chorus of damned static assaulted her senses. Even then, her ears were left ringing from her comrade's shriek. Gods, but Vox was such a drama queen. Always shouting and squalling about something or someone, and today he was having a proper fit among bitch fits. She wasn't selling whiskers out to him, really. Nope, wasn't like that at all. Vox had come calling only a few minutes ago, trying to set up an interview with heaven's latest if not greatest angel, and she'd accidentally let slip the fact that said angel wasn't exactly down here at the moment. The tantrum that had followed was legendary. Case in point. Velvet. Needy bastard was getting on her last nerve. You going deaf over there? She dug a finger in her ear with a grimace, trying to rid herself of the ringing in her ears, to no avail. I said he went up to the pearly gates. Something about business. No clue when he'll be back. I heard that, but why? Vox all but whined the last word. She could practically hear him gnashing his electric teeth. He was right where we wanted him. If you'd just stalled him for a few more minutes. Her brow furrowed in thinly veiled concern. Was he? Now, I wasn't aware that we were doing anything besides observing him. Vox faltered on the other end of the line and laughed nervously. Well, you know how it is. Plans change. Vox, darling, her grin gained an edge. Is there something you and Valentino aren't telling me about? Vel, Kamoon Tilda, would I keep a secret from you? If it benefited him, undoubtedly. Sleazy prick. Course, she couldn't say that aloud without stirring shit up. Vox was more or less the de facto leader of the V's, and while he might occasionally act like the three of them were in a partnership to an extent, she also knew he looked after his own needs first and foremost. Bastard had practically led a cult when he was alive. You could never truly trust someone like that, not completely. Nor did she, for that matter. Look, her so-called comrade feigned an awkward laugh, which meant shit had well and truly hit the fan. I've got one of the sins knocking on my door, asking where the hell that angel boy of yours is in. Velvet sputtered, ashen cheeks burning pink. He's not my boy. Then you're what? His woman, or something? Vox. Semantics. It doesn't matter. Oi, she glowered into her phone, purple sparks shooting from her eyes. It does to me, you cheeky prat. Velvet. He's already picked a fight with the damn hellhounds and pissed off their boss. Not exactly a guy you say no to. Her eyes bulged. Well, don't send any of them here. Morningstar's gonna blow a gasket. Vox guffawed, and this time he sounded thrilled. Shit, he's there, too. And here I thought he was too busy fucking around with his ducks. Damn it, hadn't meant to tell him that. Listen, she all but ground the word out through clenched teeth, hating how it sounded like she was begging. Just stall them, alright. I need more time. Fiend, I'll see what I can do you. But you owe me, babe. Velvet closed down her phone with a sigh and looked back to the hotel with a sigh. Quote. Don't I always? Already she could hear the racket within. Veronica was shouting at Kurama over something or other, but her words lacked rancor, and there unmistakably an undercurrent of laughter to it. Controlled chaos, some might say, but without Naruto, it just wasn't the same. There was an emptiness to it for her, an entertainment most sorely lacking. The underworld was changing, and that was good, but without him here to push her buttons, she found herself drifting away from it all. Oh gods, she missed him already. Her, actually missing someone. Stop the presses. Was she going soft? Couldn't be. She didn't love the blonde bastard. She just found him entertaining, that was all. Yeah, he was good for her label and helping her get views on VoxTube. No feelings involved here, no Siri. Nothing of the sort. She didn't give a flying fig for what he thought of her or any of that shite. Bugger. Maybe that hag Carmen had the right of it, stalking off when she did. At least her fellow overlord could sulk in the privacy of her own home. With a huff, Velvet palmed her face and stared wistfully up at heaven above. Whatever he's doing up there better be important. Tilda. Carmen kicked out at her punching bag with a furious cry, obliterating it in a shower of dust. The poor thing yielded far too easily. Alas, her anger did not. She would be having words with Uzumaki when he returned. Tilda. Sue. No sex. Veronica flopped onto the couch and buried her head in a pillow with a forlorn sigh. No sex. Angel Dust patted her head. There, he'll be back. He better be. Bastard owes me an orgasm. Tilda. Kurama eyed the absolute mountain of paperwork before her with a baleful eye. I fail to understand why you need my help with this mess. Wouldn't Charlie be a better choice? Ah, come on. Emily poked her head over his shoulder with a happy chirrup. You're the one who knows Naruto best. The kitsune blanched. Is that what all these forms are for? That stupid declaration of his. You up, Tilda. We've gotta start somewhere. I'm not helping you with these. Plies. Kurama stood strong. Emily clasped both hands together and made sad Emmy noises. Kurama folded like a house of cards. Tilda. Sarah awoke slowly. Wakefulness wasn't a sudden thing on her part. It came slowly, painfully, reluctantly returning her to reality. She dug her heels in and fought it with every fiber of her corrupted being, not wanting to waken from the dream and the sweet solace it provided. She'd slept restlessly throughout much of the night, tossing and turning, tormented from every side. Haunted by doubt, guilt, and the nightmares. By the Creator, the endless nightmares. They had clung to her like a shroud of shadow, dampening her with darkness, further corroding her thoughts as she fell further and further. She had ranted and raged against the inevitable, shouted and screamed, all for naught. The dead had no mercy for her. The damned dragged her down with countless cold hands, making her pay for the last 7 years, for every extermination. And then, suddenly, peace. Light in the dark. Salvation. Someone or something had plunged into her nascent nightmare like a fallen star amidst the darkness. Gently it took a hold of her, wrapped an arm her waist, and promptly pulled her out of the depths. Then came another arm, enfolding her in a warm embrace, holding her tight. One palm had stroked the small of her back, that sweet spot directly between her 6 wings, while the other came to rest upon her hip and rocked her from side to side. Whatever the entity was, it had cuddled her close, whispering reassurances in her ear. She could barely remember the last time someone had hugged her, truly embraced her, not since she was very young. She possessed only a distant memory of such an event, of the speaker's arms enfolding her tiny body and a hand tucking her head into a warm bosom as they dried her tears. This had been like that, but better, for lack of a better word. Enfolded within those arms she felt safe and warm, as though she were on the very verge of a song. Her, singing. The very thought made her flush. Even now their voice resounded in her ears, a harmonic note ringing through every fiber of her being. And so my watch begins. They had sounded so familiar. Almost painfully so. Why? In the end, it was just a dream. She tried to cling onto that moment forever, but her body simply wouldn't allow it any longer. Once she was awake and it was impossible to stay asleep. Her wings twitched as she sighed, lips pursing in an annoyed frown. Now that she was awake, she was aware. Being aware meant she remembered everything, with all the baggage that came with it. Her eyes reluctantly drifted open, accepting defeat. Time to face the day, she supposed. No point in putting it off any longer. She could hardly afford to hide away in her room the entire day and. Wait just a moment. Why was she so warm? Sarah sought to roll over. Unfortunately, something tugged at her arm, and rather than rising, she only wound up flopping from her side and onto her back. Baffled, she glared up at the ceiling in quiet confusion and tried to move again. This time, she felt a wayward tug on her arm. Something had a hold of her hand. She could feel it. Irritated, she then turned the other way, seeking the source. Her eyes bulged. Naruto. Because that was undoubtedly the exasperating angel kneeling at the foot of her bed, wing tucked over his body like a blanket, sound asleep as he clutched her fingers within his. The very sight of their interlocked hands turned her face beet red and sent a rush of complicated emotions coursing through her bosom. How improper. How indecent. How shameless. You're not letting go, though. Not the voices again. Reluctantly, Sarah tugged her hand free, only to find that he'd somehow folded a note between their clasped palms. Upon freeing herself, it tumbled free and landed neatly in her lap. She snatched it up thoughtlessly, only to scowl at the rough scrawl written therein. For an angel most high, his handwriting was just awful. She didn't know how to feel about that, despite the message therein. Hey, so I'm back. Writing this with one hand is pretty hard. You looked pretty messed up, so I figured I'd let ya sleep. Pretty tired myself, come to think of it. Can't remember the last time I slept. P.S. If I fall asleep, please don't draw on my face. Warm regards. N. The note fell from Sarah's fingers as a blackened orb bloomed upon her chest, followed by countless others in her halo and hair besides. She gasped and hastily dispelled them with flailing fingers. Still, the damage was done. Worse, he'd come back and seen her disheveled state. He was a witness. A loose end. The cause of all this. Despite that thought, her body betrayed her and her right hand twitched off its own accord, absently reaching down to cup his cheek. He looked so young in that instant. Helpless. It almost made her want to. Or rather, want him to. Oh ho, naughty girl. Such impure thoughts. Whatever would your speaker say? Sarah scowled. He had seen her while she slept, which meant he knew. There could be only one course of action, one solution. Forgive me, she whispered under her breath. Tilting his head back, Sarah conjured a weapon into her open hand, a lance of light, one she even now awkwardly aimed at his throat at an angle. But even that aspect of her power was warped, flickering with shadows. She loathed the sight of it, not just the weapon, but the image of herself gazing back at her within its depths. Once more, a darkened version of herself leered at her, horns and all, flames crackling in her bright eyes, grinning from ear to ear. She seemed more real now than ever. Sarah flinched at the sight of herself and hastily averted her gaze. And no, that wasn't her. It could never be her. She was an angel most high, not a demon. Lies. In your house of God. No wonder he's abandoned you. Be silent. Sarah brought her arm back to deliver damnation. Despite her shout, Naruto didn't stir. Preposterous. Here at last she dithered, hesitated, faltering out of fear. Why wasn't he reacting? He had to be aware of her. He must be. There was no way he wasn't. She'd seen him react to threats well beyond the speed of light before, both against Adam and others since. For him to remain dormant now of all times, idly dozing into her palm without a care in the world, it seemed too good to be true. Was this a test? A trick? He couldn't possibly trust her. Not after their last argument. Yet he'd come back, hadn't he? He'd been holding her hand, banished her nightmares. She realized that now. He could have stayed down there in the underworld, Morningstar's kingdom, rubbing elbows with demons and sinners alike, yet he hadn't. Instead he'd returned for her. He hadn't brought Emily with him. He'd hastened to her side alone, as though he'd somehow sensed her suffering. Why? Why come back? Why did he fill her with such conflicting feelings? Why? Why? She snarled at him, baring her teeth. This is all your fault. If only you didn't exist. Naruto snorted in his sleep just then, perhaps subconsciously responding to her. The sound soured Sarah, cursing her with equal parts wrath and grief alike. The gall. Do you think you're being cute? She could just imagine his retort. Bitch, I'm adorable Tilda. Was she hearing even his voice now? Was there no end to this torment? Would she never be free? Her arm trembled. A bead of sweat ran down her brow. She hated him. She loved him. She wanted to kill him. She wanted him to look at her. A hysteric laugh leapt from her lips. Damn you. Do it. The voice whispered in her ear, crooning softly. Strike him down, and your journey will be complete. You'll finally be free. Sarah's heart hitched. Freedom. Wasn't that what she wanted? She could almost feel the unseen claws on her face now, cupping her cheek just as she did Naruto's. Still no reaction. She looked back to him, wondering when if he would make his move. Soon, surely. He was completely exposed, utterly vulnerable. Unless. Maybe he really was asleep. In that case, a single strike. That was all it would take. One quick thrust of her lance and he would die. Even he couldn't survive a wound like that. She had no idea where an angel went after they died, but wherever it was, it wouldn't be here. He would be out her hair once and for all. Emily would understand. This was for the good of heaven. Naruto was dangerous, just like the Morningstar, a free thinker whose good intentions would ultimately damn them all. She had to do this. She must do this. She would protect everyone, even if Emily didn't understand. Even if she hated her. Even if. A whisper caressed her ear. Don't worry, Sarah. I love you. After all, I couldn't exist without you. Sarah stabbed down. Tilda. Achoo Tilda. Charlie sneezed harshly, startling Vaggie out of bed. Baffled, she glared daggers at her. Babe, what the actual fuck? Tilda. A lone black feather fluttered down to alight upon Alistair's head. Grinning, he plucked the plumage from his hair. My, now what do we have here? Tilda. Morningstar chuckled ruefully, shook his head, and promptly polished off the last of his drink. He'd definitely felt something just now, a shift in the proverbial balance, if you will. Setting his mug down, he looked heavenward, face splitting in a smug smirk. He'd hate to tell Naruto I told you so, boot. He'd definitely say I told you so. This is gonna be foon Tilda. Tilda. Kurama felt a stab of agony as though it were her own and bristled from head to toe. A fist swung outward, obliterating a nearby wall. I'll kill her. Tilda. Emily looked up from her paperwork with a soft sigh. She'd felt it too just now, how could she not? Oh, Sarah, what did you do? Tilda. Sarah stared at the blood upon her spear. Oh, gods, she'd gone and done it now, hadn't she? She'd never be able to come back from this, not now, not ever. It couldn't be denied. Her lance had undoubtedly drawn angelic blood, that much was surely true, and yet, it was far from a fatal wound. A few stray beads of golden ichor sizzled away at the edge of her weapon, leaving behind a shallow slice across her fellow angel's cheek. Yet despite or perhaps in spite of it, Naruto's head remained where it was, firmly affixed to his shoulders. He really hadn't reacted at the end there, even with her intent to kill looming over him. He'd not even twitched. Which meant he trusted her enough to let his guard down. Which meant he might actually feel something for her in return. Which meant. It was a slim chance, and may well be self-delusion on her part, the thoughts of a mind gone mad. Perhaps it was. Regardless, the results spoke for themselves. Sarah's body betrayed her without warning. There was no other word for it. The reaction proved as deep as it was visceral. Something deep inside her said no, rejecting the concept of violence completely and utterly, leaving her to recoil in horror from what she had done, or rather, nearly done. She began to hyperventilate, lungs heaving, sweat beading her brow. Monster. I'm a monster. I nearly. Her weapon fell from her furled fingers, struck the floor and shattered soundlessly. She ripped her hand from Naruto's face and let his head flop back bonelessly back to the bed. In truth, she barely noticed, she was too busy staring at her trembling hands. Her vision flickered madly. One moment her palms were spattered with golden blood, in the next they were clean again. Bloody. Clean, now. Bloody once more. A lone tear fled from her eyes, tumbled down her cheek, tickled her chin and dripped down to strike Naruto's cheek, followed by a second, then a third, yet a fourth and a fifth besides. The minuscule wound on his cheek healed and sizzled away into nothingness with a bit of steam, not that she noticed in that instant. She was too busy looking herself, her cracked halo and stained wings. In that instant, she experienced an awful moment of clarity, a fleeting sliver of sanity amidst the tattered tapestry of her thoughts. She couldn't do it. She just couldn't. By the speaker. What have I done? What have I become? For once, the voice remained curiously silent, almost worryingly so. She had wanted her to lash out and she had, so why was it quiet now? In the end, Sarah never had a chance to wonder why, because Naruto stirred and the moment passed. Shaking his head to and fro, the blonde angel scrubbed the last dregs of sleep from his eyes before raising both arms over his head. From there he stretched like a lazy fox with a mighty yawn, utterly unaware of just how close he'd come to death, seemingly ignorant of it all. Or was he? His eyes met hers and she wondered. There was no way of telling, and that frightened her. Sarah flinched beneath his stoic stare and hastily averted her gaze, to no avail. What would he think? What would he say? What would he do? There could be no hiding her sorry state from him now. Even as she thought to tuck her warped wings behind her back, he was already frowning at her, peering at her thoughtfully. They hadn't spoken for quite some time now. Even before he departed, she'd lacked the ability to read him, much less predict his movements. His lips parted. Sarah tensed, bracing herself for the fight of her life. This was one battle she might not survive. Why are ya crying? Of all the questions to ask. Yet she still was, wasn't she? She hadn't even realized it. But she couldn't stop. She was overwhelmed. Something had cracked deep inside her, and she didn't think she'd ever be whole again. She wasn't even sure she wanted to be anymore. A strangled sound lodged itself in her throat. It took her a moment to realize it was a sob. I hate you. Whiskered cheeks, dimpled in a wry smile, pure as a sunbeam. I don't think you do. No, she wasn't playing this game. Not with him. Why didn't you dodge? She could almost imagine his response. Because I trusted you. Because I knew you wouldn't hurt me. Because I love you, too. But he didn't say any of those things. Instead, he tilted his head and squinted at her. Dodge what? And so she had no way of knowing. Playing dumb, was he? Damn him. Why are you here, Uzumaki? His eyes opened ever so slightly to regard her with renewed scrutiny. Let's answer your question with another question. Why do you look like that? Insufferable blonde bastard. As though he didn't know. Fine. Two could play this game. She stubborn tucked her wings in tight behind her back and turned away from him, refusing to let him get a good look at her halo in the gloom of her room. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean. Sarah. She stubbornly struck the tears from her eyes with the back of her left hand, refusing to acknowledge him in any way. Naruto rose, walked around the bed, and placed himself firmly in her field of view. Sarah jerked her gaze away. He could have grabbed her, made her look at him, compelled her to action with his silver tongue, even leapt onto the bed and gotten into her face. But he did none of those things. Instead he calmly circled around her once more until she'd no choice but to look at him. Thud 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 went her traitorous heart, pounding a mile a minute. She panicked and looked away again. Sighing, he walked back round the other end to face her. I can do this all day, ya know. She pushed out at his chest with both palms, seeking to shove him. Leave me be. Naruto casually caught her by the wrists, one to each hand, and stared her down. When faced with that golden gaze, Sarah felt heat creep up the back of her neck and seep into her cheeks. She managed to meet his gaze for a solid 9 seconds before her nerve faltered. All too soon, she found herself looking away. Cease, she muttered under her breath. Don't stare at me like that. Something softened in those blazing eyes of his. Fine. He pulled her forwards into his arms. Sarah tensed, expecting an attack or worse, retribution for the soul death she'd nearly inflicted upon him in her madness, but it never came. Instead he lifted her up. Belatedly, her chin came down over his shoulder, his arms curled around her wings and she found herself brought close to him, closer than she'd ever dared dream. It was only when he began patting her back that she realized what he was doing. Naruto's first action had been one of retaliation, but rather to embrace her. There we go, he chuckled. Emmy says hugs always help. Sarah froze. As she'd said before, it had been a long while since she received a proper hug herself. She was the eldest, the high seraphim, second only to the ones above and the speaker. Yet here she was, sat in his lap when had he put her there, clinging onto him for dear life like some helpless waif. It would have been galling if she weren't so weary. Still, she felt she should offer some modicum of protest. This is most improper. He scoffed into her shoulder. Then let go. She most assuredly did not. Thought so. Idly she felt a hand reach over her shoulder to touch one of her wings. She bristled and tried to wriggle free from him, but it was too late. He was already pulling the prehensile limb back with dexterous ease, inspecting the stained feathers with a keen eye in the low candlelight. Humming to himself, he moved on to another, then the next, observing each of her wings one by one with a keen eye. At length he finally spoke, yet when he did, he said the words she least wanted to hear. You look awful. How'd this happen? Sarah growled and tried to escape him, but it wasn't that easy. He had a good grip on her waist. All she managed to do was flail her legs and accidentally hike up her gown, exposing a goodly portion of her long legs to his startled eyes. Blast him. Did he even realize the compromising position he'd placed her in? Probably not. The fool was thick as a brick when it came to some things. Why have you returned? Whiskered cheeks dimpled in a wry smile. Because of you. Her dark face burned darker still. No, don't let him set the pace. When did you get back? He tutted at her reprovingly. Ah, did you miss me that much? Sarah snarled at him. Do you think yourself funny? Hilarious, actually. He touched a finger to her halo, only to frown as a portion of it crumbled at his touch. So, out with it. What happened to you? She finally managed to wrest herself out of his lap, but that only left her sitting beside him with no escape, feeling more vulnerable than ever before. It's none of your concern. He reached up and flicked her forehead, drawing a yelp from her. Yeah, no, I'm thinking it is since I sensed your distress all the way down in the underworld. Sarah bit her lip to stifle an instinctive retort. How was he aware of that? Did his abilities truly extend so far between realms? Pride reared its ugly head in her heart. Deny, deny, deny. Bluff as though her life depended on it. I assure you, regardless of what you sensed, I'll be just fine. Bullshit. Language. She rounded on him with a hiss, wings bristling. Comport yourself properly. You are an angel for heaven's sake. And you're falling. The counter stung, but he wasn't finished with her yet. She flinched. What proof do you have? He tapped her cracked halo. I may not understand some stuff, Sarah, but I'm not stupid. Yes, he was. For all his vaunted claims at being able to sense emotions, he didn't realize that he was the source of her woe. Perhaps if he did, this would be simpler, but no, just like that, all his walls were up around her again. It wasn't fair. Why wouldn't he let his guard down around her as he had Emily? He had for a time, there, while he slept. Now he was infuriating her all over again. Screw it. If he was going to hurt her, then she'd just have to hurt him first, wouldn't she? You want the reason. She flared her wings anew with an exasperated noise. This is your fault. You're responsible for this. Am I? That same insouciant smile flashed forth, wild and rebellious, just like Morningstar. No, worse than him. He was being soulfully stubborn, eternally erratic, and deliberately difficult. How would my actions have anything to do with you falling unless? His eyes widened as his entire body tensed. She saw the precise moment he put 2 and 2 together, then found 4. When his lips parted, a little miserable deep inside her wailed out of sheer shame. No, no, no. Don't say it. Be silent. Remarkably, he didn't. Instead, he dodged that proverbial arrow and changed the subject. You've been spying on me. It wasn't a question, but neither was it an accusation either, more statement of facts than anything else. Why? She flushed, grateful for the reprieve, though she'd never dare admit it aloud. I was merely observing your movements. Uh-huh. He crossed both arms before his chest and stared her down. You sent Lucy after me. Sarah blinked. Lucy. You mean the Morningstar. I admit, I had words with him. Naruto made a triumphant noise. Blast. She'd said it aloud. Aha tilde. He thrust a finger into her face, poking her cheek. So it was you after all. He was right. Sarah batted his hand down with a flush, eyes glowing. You were a danger. You still are. His eyes glowed an ominous white. In what world? This one. In response to his subtle flex of power, her own gaze bled black on red with infernal fire for a moment before she mastered herself. You question, you poke, you prod, you threaten the natural order of things. And in your blind focus, your naivete, you threaten to destabilize the very realms themselves. You're just as bad as Morningstar's daughter. Naruto laughed suddenly, a sharp, savage bark of sound that had no business coming from a human's throat, angel or otherwise. I'll be the first to admit Charlie has some flaws. She doesn't always think things through, for one. He palmed his face with a sigh. I can't count the number of times I've seen her charge ahead and make mistakes, some bigger than others, all in the hope that every soul can be saved. Her heart's in the right place, but she's not always right. His face closed down for a moment, likely recalling some mangled memory she wasn't privy to, and in that instant, something dark flashed across his saintly visage. Sometimes she's wrong. Terribly, horribly, wrong. The sight of his whiskered visage just then frightened Sarah more than she dared admit. What would happen if Naruto was the one to fall? If he gave into darkness? She already knew the answer. Everything would be destroyed. I'm not one to tell a lie, ya know. He shook his head and the moment passed. Redemption is a nice dream, but as much as she might wish otherwise, it's not for everyone. For some, extermination might be necessary. I can think of at least 7 souls that deserve to be destroyed. Clutching his shoulders, he shivered for a moment. I had to shut off my senses for the longest time because I could stand the stench, the negativity, the darkness. Sarah blinked, startled by his declaration. It was surprisingly martial of him, outright blunt even. At last, some common ground. Without thinking, she reached out to take his hands in hers. You understand, then. Hell is dangerous. A threat. His head bobbed in a slow nod of agreement. It is. Relief unfurled in her broken heart. Then. Naruto pulled his fingers from hers. However, that single word dashed her hopes against the rocky shores of reality. I've met so many souls who can and should be redeemed. His smile returned suddenly, and it was so earnest, so pure, that Sarah almost found herself nodding along before she caught herself slipping. They're remarkable. They deserve a chance to be better. Now it was he who reached out to take her hands in his, despite having done so herself only a moment before. This was different. The sheer intimacy of the gesture had her flushing. He threaded his fingers within her own and gave them a gentle squeeze. It was enough to make her swoon, and the words that followed were the coup de grace. Don't you want to help them? She wanted to help herself to him. Gah, no. Sinful thoughts. Heresy. Out of my head. She averted her gaze, but found herself glancing at him out the corner of her right eye. And if they fail? He shrugged a shoulder. Then they can keep trying. Sage knows I did. Think of it like training. I failed a ton of times before I became this strong. Practice makes perfect, ya know. What you're suggesting is heretical. His smile didn't waver. If you'd just come down with me and Emily, you'd see. Come down. A hysteric laugh had her wings blooming in all their black glory. Like this. The waning light from the candles cast her face in baleful relief, leaving her eyes flickering with flames. I can't even leave this room. If I'm seen, I'll be cast out. Naruto hummed. Maybe I can help with that. Hold still. Wah. He held up their still intertwined hands before she could think to protest further. Light flowed out of him and into her, suffusing her with warmth such as she'd never known. The searing radiance sank deep into her body, burning the darkness within her away. Sarah recoiled with a yelp, but despite her fear, there was no pain. Not a jot. There we go. Naruto sagged where he sat, slightly out of breath as the light faded. That should help. Help it had. Sarah released his hands and peered over her shoulder, preening at her radiant white wings. A trembling hand rose to touch her halo and found it intact once more. She released a shuddering breath she hadn't realized she was holding in and allowed herself to breathe. For a single wonderful moment she was whole, radiant and pure once more. But only for a moment. Not a heartbeat later, the shadow stains returned in force, the illusion cracked, and that which lay within was revealed, exposing her corruption once more. An ugly feeling arose in the pit of her stomach as she scowled down at herself in dismay. Naruto had treated the symptoms perhaps, but not cured the cause, merely concealed it. Unless the source was alleviated, she would remain as she was. Because of him. Because of her feelings. Naruto clicked his tongue. Persistent. He took up her hands again, flared all 10 of his wings and focused anew. More light surged into Sarah and she doubled over with a cry. It felt good, feeling as though she'd been dipped in the sun itself. Again, the effect was fleeting. The moment she released his hands, the corruption returned, worse than before. Naruto dragged a hand down his face, grumbling under her breath. All right, a bit more complicated than I thought. Full power it is. Her eyes widened. No, wait, my body isn't ready. Naruto didn't wait. Even as she protested, his body burst into blinding incandescent brilliance, leaving Sarah to gasp as a fresh wave of heat roared across their interlocked hands. It raced up her arms, then promptly coursed through her from head to toe. This time it didn't fade so quickly. It fought the darkness within her, burning brighter and bolder than ever before. It tore through her in a torrent of pleasure, spread to her every pore, burgeoning and building until she saw stars, and those stars shattered behind her eyes in a tide of white as she moaned. Stop. She gasped out, breaths escaping her in needy little pants. Stop. I can't take it anymore. A fresh paroxysm of delight rocked her body and she found herself sagging against him. Did he just? No, had she just? Dear Creator, she'd actually orgasmed, hadn't she? Through ringing ears, she heard Naruto chuckle nervously. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Oops, he said. Blonde bastard. Her legs trembled beneath her gown and she instinctively pushed her thighs together to hide her pleasure, for what little good it did her. As she squirmed helplessly, a black feather fell past her frowning face, startling her terribly. Could it be? A cursory glance confirmed it. Her wings were white again, her halo mended, the corruption within held at bay, for now. As she took a breath, she found herself able to heal, if only superficially. The rot had sunk its roots deep within her, and she had no doubt the corruption would return the moment he let go. Because you see, this time, Naruto hadn't yet let go of her hands. Or hand, rather. As she looked on, he briefly released one of them to wipe some sweat from his brow, then immediately went back to maintaining a proper firm grip on her fingers. His face was a mask of rigid concentration, eyes narrow and intent as he grappled with something only he could see. Finally, he leaned back with a frown. I can't get rid of this thing. He sounded almost appalled with his failure. I can hold it back, maybe give you a boost, but I can't make it go away. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say. She knew perfectly well why, because she hadn't faced these feelings clamoring in her chest. It was her fault. In her heart of hearts, she was a coward. To speak the words to him was to give them form, and in form, risk failure. Denial, rejection. And maybe Naruto was a bit of coward too, because while he definitely noticed it earlier, he wasn't talking about it now. They were quite the cowards, weren't they? Sure enough, the moment he released her hand, Sarah felt the corruption creep back in. In a panicked fit she tried to latch onto him, missed his hands entirely, and somehow wound up in his lap instead. Something stirred in her and the darkness receded, beaten back, but not defeated. She could still feel it in her heart, a wolf lurking at the edges of the light, a beast ready to pounce if she should falter, even for a moment. Physical contact, then. Whatever Naruto done to her had proven a remedy, however temporary. It wasn't limited to his hands, apparently, so long as she was touching him. This could work. She would make it work. An awkward solution was better than no solution at all, surely. Or you could just confess to him. Kiss him. Pin him down to the bed and make sweet, sweet love to him. Blast, and she'd thought herself rid of the voice. I thought you were gone. What do you want? I want what you want, naturally. And right now, that's him. Naruto favored her with an exasperated look, blind to her inner turmoil. This ain't gonna work. I can't stay by you every second of the day. Can't you? She pleaded. He sighed. Sarah, we need to deal with the cause of this. What cause? She babbled hysterically, talking over him. There is no cause. I know not this cause of which you speak. Enough. The room trembled for a moment as every candle in her quarters dimmed. You said I was the cause of this. So what, exactly, did I do besides defy you? Everything. She'd watched him essentially start a new life down in the underworld from afar, witnessed him take charge and make proclamations he had no right to make, face obstacle after obstacle, and win over adversary and ally alike with more than just his fists, but his words as well. He confounded her. Sometimes he gave in to others, and at others he was a brick wall of resolve, an unmovable rock. It wasn't his charisma that first spawned this seemingly one-sided attraction, though that certainly helped. No, in truth, those emotions were of the baser variety. Envy, for his deeds. Pride, in his accomplishments. Lust, to have him trapped beneath her. Greed, so that she might have him all to herself. Wrath, that he seemed so willfully blind to her burgeoning feelings. Gluttony and sloth alone didn't factor into the equation, if only because she didn't feel the like when she looked at Naruto. But she felt everything else, and therein lie the problem. A seraphim most high mustn't feel such things. She was meant to embody justice and order, not be some wanton harlot with a crush. Her lips formed a thin line of defiance as she fought to ignore these seething feelings. She must master these emotions, move beyond them. She must. Besides, rejection would shatter her, and if she shattered, she'd surely fall. Her other self laughed at her. Coward, coward, coward. Just listen to yourself. Unwilling to kill him, but too afraid to take a leap of faith. You're a hypocrite amongst hypocrites. Faith. Faith was all she had left. If she lost that, she'd break. A tissue brushed her cheek. You're crying again. Sarah sniffled and looked away. I am not. Now, Naruto took her by the cheeks and dragged her face back to his. So speaking, he began the laborious process of drying her tears, ruined makeup and all. And here I thought Seraphim didn't lie. Her shoulders seized up in a fit. Damn you, Uzumaki. Perhaps she was damned already. In that case. Screw it. She was tired of hurting, and he was too damn close. With a breathy sigh, Sarah pivoted in Uzumaki's lap, leaned forward, and pressed her forehead to his. Their noses brushed. It wasn't a kiss. Far from it. Nowhere close. Their lips didn't touch in the least. She wasn't ready for something like that, didn't even know how to deliver one properly. But the speaker used to do this for her when she was little, and the habit brought her some small comfort. Naruto paused in cleaning her face, momentarily confused. Sarah. She closed her eyes and refused to look at him. I'm tired. Oi, don't go taking a nap on me now. She pressed a finger to his lips. Shush. He guffawed. You can't just shush me. 4 other fingers joined the first as she clamped a palm over his mouth, muffling his words. Can. Have. Did. He frowned thunderously at her, but didn't protest, nor did he attempt to break free, though he could have. Such was well within his power. Instead, he simply stared. I need you. There. She'd said it aloud. The hardest part was over. In all fairness, I'm not sure when I started to, but I do. I want you by my side. Frankly, she also wanted him to bend her over a barrel, and maybe little seraphims besides, but she didn't dare say that for fear of spooking him. You've changed things. There's no going back. And perhaps, she glanced to her wings, still pure for now, so long as she relied upon him. Perhaps that's a good thing. You say some of the souls below deserve redemption. Do you believe that? He rolled his eyes and nodded vigorously against her palm. Sarah took a deep breath and stared him down. Do you believe I deserve redemption? Naruto ceased nodding, bright eyes squinting at her with renewed intensity as his brow furrowed. Neither a rejection nor an affirmation, then. Is that all you have to say, ow? She yelped as he bit her hand, causing her to jerk backwards. What do you want me to say? He raised both shoulders, palms pointed upward in a shrug as she glared at him. We've butted heads more times than I can count, but sometimes it feels like I barely know you, even if you were fun to tease. Straightening up, he patted her head, tousling the long pale locks. And you're not damned, despite what you think. It's normal to feel emotions. Here at last he looked away, idly scratching the back of his head in almost boyish chagrin. Even angels, ya know. It's what you do with them that counts. Sarah dared to hope. Then. He held up a finger to ward off any advances on her part. Friends, First, I'm not gonna just jump into the sack with you out of the blue. That wouldn't be fair to Emily or Veronica. Emily she could understand, but to rank a hellspawn above her. That stung a little, but she could accept it. They'd only just begun mending bridges after all. Still, she was a greedy angel and she had to ask. Afterwards, then. Naruto coughed into a fist, she didn't miss the flush in his face. We can test the waters and see where it goes. If it goes, I mean. Another cough, and he was full on blushing now. I'm not really used to all these people being interested in me, ya know. I'm gonna get dog-piled at this rate. Sarah didn't budge. Naruto sighed. You're not gonna move, are ya? Is that a problem? Naruto opened his mouth. Sarah did not pout, but she did stare. He chuckled. You're kinda used to getting your way, ain't ya? She couldn't quite hide the ghost of a smile from her face. I thought we were testing the waters. Looks like it. At length, he gave up trying to make her move and let her stay in his lap. She latched onto his hand as recompense, which he accepted with a sigh and changed the subject. She could still feel hints of darkness churning within her, and she wasn't eager to see them, even less so as Naruto spoke. So how long have you been holed up in here, anyway? Is anything even getting done? Thank goodness. She happily pounced on the offered olive branch, desperate to change the subject. I've delegated most of my paperwork to Abel and Adam, actually. Naruto's brow shot straight into his hair. Adam's awake. Sarah grimaced in mild annoyance. Yes, about that. The door to her room slammed open with a devastating crunch, nearly ripping itself free from its hinges. Speak of the nuisance and they shall appear. Hey, bitch. Naruto balked at the sight of her. Adam. Yeah, shoulda seen Abel's reaction. It was one for the ages. Kid almost thought I was Eve. She smacked her lips and looked to Naruto. Right, so, you and me need to have words about a certain someone. Sarah growled. Get out. Now hold on, boss lady, this is important. Adam looked down, idly noted Sarah's rather compromising position in Naruto's lap. Well. A shit-eating grin spread across the former Archangel's visage. What do we have here, Tilda? Sarah conjured a lance of light to her hand and brandished it with intent. Out. Credit where it was due, the redhead promptly performed an about-face. Alright, I can see you're busy. Don't make too many little seraphims. Sarah launched the lance. Adam fled with a yelp and the door slammed shut, leaving them alone. Naruto gave her an arch look. What exactly happened while I was away? Sarah sighed into her palm. It's a long story.